All right. Welcome, everybody, to the council meeting for the 10th of June, 2026. We've got a full gallery here tonight, which is always wonderful. Let me start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people as the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle-Walleyup area, and that we recognize that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. And I also acknowledge that we meet here today on land that was never ceded, and I wholeheartedly support the many campaigns for truth-telling, justice, and reconciliation, both here and across this country. So for folks that may not have attended a council meeting before, just to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live online. And so while all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors both in the public gallery and members of the public submitting a question or speaking, you may be captured in the recording, so just be aware of that. So we'll move on to attendance, apologies, and leave of absence. I have none before me. Are there any from the floor? Seeing none, we'll go on to applications for leave of absence. None, great. And disclosures of interest by members. I understand there's one from Councillor Williamson Wong.
Thank you. I'm disclosing an impartiality interest on items C2602, C26063 and C26064 because I've worked on similar short-term rental accommodation matters within Perth metro area as a lawyer, so I will be leaving the chamber for those items.
Great, thank you for that. Are there any other disclosures of interest? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to responses to the previous public questions that were taken on notice. And if you had questions taken on notice, the response will be contained in the agenda for tonight's meeting, which can be found online. So now we move into public question time. Now, during public question time, folks have the ability to, or they're able to speak for up to 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, there will be an alarm that sounds, and if you haven't wrapped up your comments by then, we just ask that you try to get there as quickly as you can, because we have a packed house, we have a lot of people that want to speak. And also, going through the people that have signed up to speak, we have 17 people here to speak on item number 9. So what I may do, what we'll do is I'll ask the other speakers that aren't speaking on item 9 if they want to speak first, or if you want to speak before the item on the agenda that you're speaking to, you're more than welcome to do that. But I'll probably move that item up first for consideration because there's so many people here in the public gallery that are interested in that. So, so given all that, I will ask Barry Healy. You're speaking on an item that is not on the agenda. And you have 3 minutes, Barry.
Yes, I live in Whitegum Valley and I'm involved with Friends of Booyambara Park, and I've become concerned about certain actions by the council in Boo Park, in particular the reefing, the quite violent reefing out of dead understory in the park. Dead shrubs were removed in a way that has produced soil erosion and has led to an explosion of feral weeds in the park. And I really am concerned that about the attitude that the council has towards managing the park. The park is for the local residents. The park actually plays a role of what you could call rewilding, trying to re-establish an ecological system that was violently disrupted over the years previously. And by ripping out the understory, that's badly affected the environment in which the bobtail lizards were living. The very bobtail lizards that we've gone to a lot of trouble to provide with guttering that they can cross Stephen Street safely. So we provided the guttering and then we've removed their environment. My concern is that there may be people within the council who relate to Booyambara Park as a signifier of a public open space, of a green space, without understanding and valuing the philosophy of those who worked so hard to establish Booyambara Park in the first place. So I'll leave that with you, councillors.
Great, thank you, Barry. Next, I have Lehani Williams, who's speaking to an item not on the agenda.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and officers. I'm Leanne Williams. I'd like to talk numbers. I put a post on Freo Massive about the removal of 2 Norfolk Island pines at the South Terrace Jura Road roundabout. As of 10 p.m. last night, there were over 100 comments from approximately 45 members of the public. Of those commenters, 64% were firmly against the crossing on the west involving the removal of those trees. About 28% appeared neutral. Who wanted the crossing on the west? 7% of commenters, that is 3 people. In town team surveys, who were the 60 people consulted about their crossing experiences? They all had poor walking experiences, but were fine in cars. How were they chosen? Where do they live? How long have they lived there? Do they have ocean views? Would they like that to be arranged? And how much of the town team's grant was allocated to collect the data? I'd love the exact figure, please. I'd also like to request that when discussing this roundabout, could council please avoid referring to deaths and traffic accidents? To do so might be misleading. The deaths prior to 2022 occurred nowhere near the roundabout. Unfortunately, Eliana Hullett jumped on the May 27th council meeting bandwagon and falsely reported in Perth now that deaths were connected to this roundabout, writing that an 81-year-old was fatally hit by a truck at the intersection. Now half of Freo think you're cutting down trees to save our lives. Main Roads crash data from the last 5 years shows a total of 8 crashes within about 100 metres of this roundabout. Only 1 incident occurred at this roundabout itself, involving 2 cars, no pedestrians. 7 nearby crashes also involved only 2 cars, no pedestrians. No one has been killed. Has there ever been a serious accident at this roundabout? Here's another number, 118. That's the estimated age of those trees. In 1908, Councillor Frank Nicholas, serving on Freo Council for 16 years, would never imagine a future council contradicting its own policies to remove those trees based on such limited data. I conducted an informal traffic survey there on Sunday at 5 p.m. for 10 minutes. I recorded 213 vehicle movements, 29 pedestrian crossings and a handful of bikes. The western entrance had the highest vehicle volume, opposite the east, where you quote highest volumes to justify a western crossing. Congest traffic on the west to improve public safety because there's been 1 non-serious crash in 5 years? Will you be doing an up-to-date traffic count survey? Yes, more pedestrians now cross the north and west since your islands diverted them. But 2 weeks ago, the engagement report showed not a single respondent crossing on the west. Not one. What does that tell us? People hang out on the east. Put a crossing on the west and traffic will bank up to Kalis all summer. My recorded video survey is available on YouTube under the title South Freo Roundabout, You Framed It. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell while you're there. Thank you.
Great timing, Leonie, and thank you. I'll just note that it is still open for public comment, so if folks have comments about the roundabout and the proposal, that they can go online and make those comments. But I'll turn it over to the acting director for a reply.
Thank you, through the chair. So in regards to the town team's survey, that was conducted independently of the city in December 2025, and we don't have those details available to us. With the traffic crash data, over the last 5 years, there have been 15 recorded incidents. These numbers are comparable to other roundabouts. The last physical traffic count on Jura Road was conducted in February 2026. They're measured at mid-block locations on Jura Road, so they're not immediately adjacent to the roundabout, and they shouldn't be considered representative of speeds at the roundabout entries or pedestrian crossing locations. We do have information on all sides of the roundabout through various other methods, which include the physical counts and GPS-based recorded speeds from vehicles. The other sort of couple of comments around, I suppose to address, were the discussions on the pedestrian priority crossing points, and these locations will be landed following all the consultation. There's been no sort of physical change to those at the moment, and the existing rubber speed cushions on the approaches have been removed just to allow the reinstatement, the permanent asphalt, the resurfacing works to occur, and then they'll be reinstated with permanent asphalt ones following those works. and all legs on the approach will have permanent calming treatments following the works.
Great, thank you. Next, I have Mark Woodcock to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Thanks, Mark.
Good evening, Mark Woodcock from Whitegum Valley. After Soliani, I have a very similar sort of concept. I read in Perth Now 4 or 5 days ago that they claim people were killed. They were quoting councillors or talking about councillors on that as well. When you go back to the actual 2022 September news articles, Fremantle Herald had several. The actual deaths sadly occurred at Hampton Road and Jura Road. It had nothing to do with the roundabout. The concept plan of Jura Road and South Terrace intersection modifications heavily implies that removing mature heritage-listed Norfolk pines is a direct response to urgent pedestrian safety requirements, a narrative echoed by corporate media reports linking those removals to past fatal accidents. However, the tragic pedestrian fatality actually occurred further east at the signalised traffic stop sign or traffic lights intersection of Jura Road and Hampton Road, not at the South Terrace tree site. The question is, will the council formally acknowledge that the fatal pedestrian accidents used to publicly justify urgent pedestrian interventions did not happen at the South Terrace roundabout where the trees are marked for removal, and explain why the community is being given a false choice between pedestrian safety and heritage canopy retention? The other one's a subject on number 9. Good governance requires that a city replaces stable, bill-paying and culturally iconic tenants who actively draw visitors to Fremantle. It must be so based on a rock-solid financial viable alternative. Currently, the city appears to be driving out world-class sculptors, ceramicists, sorry if I got that wrong, and photographers from J-Shed. Zero public clarity on the future financial model, management structure, or ongoing maintenance funding this historical precinct. The question, in the interest of financial cultural responsibility to Fremantle ratepayers, will the council disclose the full business case and risk assessment profile for J-Shed eviction plan, or admit the council is sacrificing proven cultural assets for an uncosted, unverified ideological agenda?
Thank you, Mark. Do we have a reply for any of those? Okay, we'll take those on notice, Mark. Great. Is there anyone else in the public gallery that'd like to speak to anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Seeing no one, okay. So I've got 2 other people here, one to speak on item 1 and one to speak on item 2, and then 17 people for item 9. So Martin or Ashley, if you wanted to speak now during public question time, you feel free to speak now, and then we'll get through the ones that are here to speak to item 9. We'll do that item, and then we'll get to your item as well, or you can speak before your item. So it's whatever you prefer. Did you wish to speak? Martin, did you wish to speak now? Yeah, perfect. Yep. At the end of 3 minutes, you'll hear a little alarm, and if you haven't finished, just wrap up your comments, please.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors. My name is Ashley Barlow, and I'm the owner and builder of proposed dwelling at number 2 Field Street in Beaconsfield. I'm speaking to item C2606-1, which proposes a single dwelling for my family and which the city's officers have refused based on retaining walls and the removal of some existing trees. As has already been raised, the existing trees are either exotic species or not native to Western Australia. A site inspection will in fact confirm all trees have limited tree canopy, and the arborist has put a life expectancy between 10 and 15 years for all of these trees. A number of you have already acknowledged on site the trees are unsightly and new native trees would be a considerable improvement. I'm fully on board with the importance of tree retention and getting back to improved levels of tree canopy within the city and carbon capture. This is why I've agreed to plant 10 new native trees endemic to the area, which will have a much longer life expectancy and will be far more visually appealing. I wish to also make note that the retained levels sought by the city have further reduced the feasibility of tree retention due to the inconsistent levels already in place on the site. With regards to the proposed site works and retaining walls, a site inspection will again confirm the site has been significantly modified, with the existing dwelling also incorporating a series of retaining walls and build-ups. The new dwelling has been designed with a pad level 1 metre below that of the existing dwelling, and I have designed the site levels and retaining with full support of all neighbours. They understood the issues to overcome the problematic site and the substantial change in levels, and their views consider the design principles have been met, and hence their strong letters of support. I've sought to keep an accessible west-facing grassed area to the front of the dwelling for my children to play in the afternoons. However, I would be willing to introduce an alternative retaining wall arrangement to the front section to further set back the dwelling from Field Street, and this could be imposed as a condition of approval. Beyond that, there is little more that can be done on the site given how extensive it has previously been modified. I've lived in the city of Fremantle for close to 25 years and run a construction business based in North Fremantle, currently building over 20 homes in the local area. I understand the importance of good design and certainly support tree retention on our projects where it is possible and practical. I would appreciate the council's support on the application and would be pleased to answer any further questions surrounding it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from the applicant, from elected members? No? Okay. And sorry, Ashley, does Martin, do you wish to speak now or do you wish to speak before your item? Is Martin here? Okay, all right, no worries. All right, now we'll move on to the speakers that are on here for item number 9, and I'll just kind of go in order as they're signed in here. So we'll begin with Jim Cathcart. Great, Jim.
Thank you. Look, I just want to follow up the email that I sent to you, the Mayor and the councillors today. And I just, some of you know, I was Director of Fremantle Arts Centre for 15 years. I've been a resident of Fremantle for 20 years, and I'm passionately interested and committed to cultural vitality of Fremantle. So I'm just urging you to support the report as written. I think it is a wonderful opportunity to open up the potential of what could be done at Bathurst Beach. And I particularly urge you not to succumb to pressure and lobbying from the existing tenants, because we've been down this path before many times over many, many years. And they're here tonight, and this is routine. They will claim that they have a that they will claim that they have a I've gone blank. They claim that they will have an entitlement to this space, that there is something sacred and special about what they're doing. This is a community space, one of the key community spaces of Fremantle. This is the opportunity through a fair and open process to re-explore and to reinvigorate what this place can be. It is a wonderful opportunity. And so I really do urge you to do that. I think that one of the most important principles of running any facility is not to lose control of it. And I think for several years, the city has lost control of this facility, of this precinct, because it has not exercised the authority that it has in actively manage the tenancies that are possible. It has succumbed to the idea that there are some tenants that are entitled to be there, which is simply not true. This is an important community asset which should be open to the community to compete in a fair and open process to realise its full activation. Can I also add, because Freo being Freo, that Freo being Freo, and this will get thrown around, that I am an old colleague of Pete Stone's and a friend of Pete Stone's. However, that is not the issue. I ask you to assess my comments on their merits. And I urge you also not to endorse the proposed amendments from the councillor and the mayor. It feels like that's a last gasp attempt by tenants to extend their tenancy in a worst case scenario. You cannot mandate an auspicing or an auspicing kind of process. I think if a tenancies end, they end, and that's it. Thank you.
Great. And I'm just going to make a comment here. So when people come up to speak, this can be a passionate subject for some folks. If you can keep your comments to how you personally feel or how your thoughts on that, and not ascribe motivations for other people who may be in the gallery. If that happens, I will ask you to stop speaking. So other people's motivations, it's up for them to describe that. So if that's all right, I'd like to keep the debate and the comments here very respectful tonight. So thank you for that. Next, I have Peter Grant here to speak on the item. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, councillors. I did put in a short item today that got cut off halfway through. I'm currently the CEO of ArtSource, which is a state-based arts agency based in Phillimore Street since the 1980s. ArtSource was involved in developing these studios, which in some part complemented 30 studios that we offer in our building on fixed 5-year leases for artists to develop their career. These studios in J-Shed were initially offered on a 5+5 term in acknowledgement that they were larger spaces and would require greater capital investment and amortisation over time. I have been inundated with comments from my members, both in support of the tenants coming to council to seek to retain occupancy of the place, and by members who have taken two positions. One is that they would like it opened up for young people, i.e. themselves, but some of the older and more mature members have said, why is it now, after all these years, this can't end with good grace? And it can't be something to celebrate what is an amazing investment by the City of Fremantle in the arts community. I'm a bit angry to be here with an agenda item that does entertain, to reflect an earlier comment, taking this off art studios. The current tenants have been in the driver's seat for decades. They've been in the driver's seat for decades since this was last brought to council. I've seen no evidence of handing over to either the next generation or the generation after that, who might be the ones who benefit from it now. None. So to come here at the last minute with the same process coming to you, I find very frustrating. I go to many local governments and I ask them for buildings for the arts, and they say to me, Jesus, if we get them in there, we'll never get them out. Or when it's time to move on, we'll find ourselves being the ogres in the local newspaper. What this council does matters. You're a leadership council. You should be leading in the state. You know, we once did. We had FDI, we had culture, we had big institutions where we engaged statewide to advocate for the arts to be a model. When I go to other councils, the treatment of J-Shed and the ability for J-Shed to come through the political process to get what should be an administrative matter is an excuse not to give young people studios. It is not an example of best practice. And we are now not in the 90s anymore. It's not the benefit that people got then. There are no studios now. We've got young people living at home. I've got a waiting list so long for my buildings, and it's really hard to get buildings. I put to you, the thing here is not for the council to intervene with any amendments or any concession. The best example you could give for me, to help me in my job, to help all artists, is to say, no, we've got a process. And you know, you bet, I'll be with your staff saying, these shouldn't be commercial, they're not commercial. They shouldn't be changed to commercial now. They should be artist studios. You've done a great thing. I say, stick with it and hold with the faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next up, Jackie Carter. Speak on the item.
Haven't seen you since film school days, Peter. Outrage. I'm here with only as an agenda as someone who's been lucky enough to live in Fremantle for 3 or 4 decades and somehow make the transition from surviving public housing into home ownership and being a ratepayer. Don't ask me how that happened. I discovered that little Arthur's Head precinct maybe 7 or 10 years ago by accident. I might have just been looking for parking. But then I discovered this fantastic little pocket park and these really beautiful old heritage buildings that were free and open to go into and to see what was happening. And I was really amazed to be able to suddenly come upon artists at work and be shown around and given full access to various arts processes that I had no idea of. That kind of welcome made me feel like that was Fremantle. I've never been so welcome to go and be involved in art and in a heritage building as I have experienced in the last 7 or 10 years at J-Shed. I can't speak to what the future is. Certainly intergenerational change of physical spaces, whether they're housing or workspaces, is an issue. I certainly think Ros D'Souza was onto something. A lot of the empty shops might not be able to be lived in as residences, but they could very quickly, I would wish, be made into art workspaces for students or young people to have a studio, and where members of the public could have access, especially to any heritage buildings. I had the joy and pleasure last Sunday a week when the storm came and took my power out of remembering that there was a family printmaking event sponsored by Bendigo Bank at WFAC, and I went to a printmaking class instead of staying at home in a blackout in a storm, and I was horrified to learn from the people that there aren't enough public workshops free at Fremantle Arts Centre because there's not enough money, and they needed a sponsor. It was a heaving mosh pit of kids doing print. It was fantastic. So I think some of the places, including the Aboriginal Arts Centre at Manjeri, is underfunded. I've done a silk printmaking class there, and it just doesn't seem to be open enough or have enough activity around it or enough support or enough mentoring. I don't know that it's up to the city to head up the arts. Is it up to administrators? I see they're all artists as well. Pete Stone and the Assistants was my first introduction to some Fremantle music scene. But I'm just not sure about it seems to have got very political, and I just hope it ends with good grace. I accidentally saw Joan Campbell at work in the 80s, and her tenancy seemed to have finished naturally and then been released without issue to a new business manager who's done very well. So I'm just hoping that that can be a model that's considered in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. Next, Bill Massey. And then just after Bill, I'll just start getting people on deck. We've got Peter on behalf of Sandra Hill.
Good evening, officers and elected members. I'm pretty well on record for being very supportive of progress in the city of Fremantle during my time on council. And I'm quite happy to stand by that. But this current situation with the J-Sheds, who's driving it? Is it officers or is it elected members? Because what I know of the J-Sheds, we've got an institution there, a precinct that was created by the artists who have been there for 33 years, put their heart and souls into that site. They've put their money into it. They've put in the infrastructure, the sinks, the toilets, the water, the electricity. They're the ones that have done that. They're world-renowned. They're not fly-by-nights like some of our former councillors who left buildings, say, owing the city money. So I would like you seriously to think about, are we taking the right track going this way, releasing these long-standing tenants? I do believe they have earned the right to that location. If and when the city does decide that it's time for them to leave, and you're expecting them to leave the buildings empty, back to a bare shell, then someone else may come along and they're going to go invest money in doing the same thing. Why would the city not compensate the tenants for the money they've put into the infrastructure in there? And I just can't see the logic of moving out tenants who pay their rents. They're not subsidised by the city. And the city hopefully moving in new tenants who will possibly seek free rent for a term. How long, who knows? But my thoughts, apart from that, why is the city not looking at doing something to house the homeless? That would be something that's very worthwhile doing. You could cut the red tape and find accommodation for these people up in Beach Street. I meet with them regular. I am supporting them. And I feel the city could do the same thing, rather than giving out bits of paper saying you can get support here and support there. But that's my lot for now. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bill. Peter, on behalf of Sandra Hill, and then Jenny Dawson after Peter. Are they here? Oh, there we go.
Good evening, everybody. Due to the short notice of these events, Aboriginal Elder Sandra Hill cannot be here, so she's asked me to read a statement. Sandra is an Aboriginal Noongar elder and a Culture Wajak custodian, an international visual artist, a member of the Stolen Generation and a First Nation warrior and a dear friend of Jenny and I. She is someone we greatly respect and have worked with for 30 years and created over 20 major public artworks. These are her words. I find it utterly astounding that the City of Fremantle wishes to create a new Aboriginal-led type of precinct at Jayshire when it has actually been functioning as exactly that for the last 30 years. Perhaps if the city took the time to go there to visit the studios of Jenny Dawson, Peter Zavella, Greg James and Gina Lee, they would be able to see exactly what these artists have achieved over the past 3 decades and how very important and valued their work is, not just by wider community, but also by the Aboriginal community living on Wajak country. Collaboration could be very well the key to reshaping the Jayshire by working closely with the current professional artists, tenants and the Aboriginal community to innovate cultural sensitivity, workable ways to bring into the precinct more emerging Aboriginal artists. For my long experience in the arts arena, I wish that I could have found someone willing to mentor and guide me through those early difficult years. The tenants currently based at Jayshire have an enormous wealth of experience in life and a vast and varied knowledge in mainstream arts, especially public art and cross-cultural collaboration. They are pioneers in numerous streams within the arts, so instead of evicting them, why don't you seriously look at the value of these artists staying where they are and inclusively is part of your new vision for the Jayshire. Open your eyes and see what they can bring to the table. Think creatively, find them a role as a part of your upgrade vision for the Jayshire precinct. I know this would be valued for the Aboriginal community and appreciated and embraced immediately. Yours sincerely, Sandra Hill.
Thank you, Peter. Jenny Dawson is next, and after Jenny, Greg James.
I've got wobbly knees because I'm an ex-Matilda. We'll have to stop meeting like this, councillors. I've been here lots of times to talk about these things. So thank you, councillors, the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, for giving us an opportunity to speak. I'm Jenny Dawson. I'm a ceramic artist, internationally renowned ceramic artist. And I'm speaking on behalf of Peter Zavella and I, who run Unit 3 at the Jayshire. And I'm wanting to talk to you today about what this feels like from the heart for the artists who are involved in this precinct and what we've done there and what our vision would love to be encompassed in moving forward. I want to tell you how it's affecting us personally and professionally. And there's lots of debate about what happens and what doesn't happen, but this is a really special precinct. It's a semi-industrial precinct. There aren't any other buildings managed by the city that is in semi-industrial area for people to work. And we're really as rare as hen's teeth. In actual fact, we're as endangered as the black cockatoo. There aren't many of us left to make a living in this way. So you've called us in the City of Artists. You've named us living legends of the Fremantle arts community. You've called us valuable cultural icons. And you present us with a plan that we think's just not good enough for this precinct. This is a real Fremantle thing that grew out of grassroots of people who were committed to spending their money. I went there as a young graduate and I borrowed money, and it took me 10 years to pay off the kiln and put in the infrastructure. I'm really worried because we are artists of the people and for the people, that the people who follow us and the artists and the artist community who follow us, we want to help them succeed. We don't want them to go into an empty shed and have to put in $50,000 worth of infrastructure. We have to take everything out with this term. There's no transition period. There's no handing over to the next group of artists who are going to continue the work that we started. And this just grew. This wasn't planned. This is Fremantle. This is the city of artists. This is where creativity and sharing and opening your door to the public and being on the stage and proudly saying, I'm a Fremantle artist. I've won 62 public artworks, and honestly, councillors, this proposition, we know we can't stay at J Shed forever. We don't want to. We want to be involved in the handover, in the transition, in the making sure that the artists who come here succeed when they put their lives on the line. We're professional artists who've invested our life, and we didn't expect to be at J Shed this long. It just happened that way. So honestly, the amendments that we're asking for is to pay us the respect that we really are demanding this. We're your icons, we're your flag bearers, we're the Fremantle artists that are out there putting our life on the line, winning the projects, offering studio space, all subsidised by us, not by the council. If you want to move to this new future, please involve us, please ask us, please help us to move out with dignity. This is a shameful way to treat your professional artists, to just move us on, and we've got huge kilns and slab rollers and all sorts of equipment. We're semi-industrial artists, and that was a semi-industrial process that was set up by some very clever councillors all those years ago, put trust in us to put our money and to stand up and be counted. We've done that. So please vote for one of these amendments that allow us the dignity to pack up everything and move to another location. And just quietly, my last statement is we've made 62 artworks all over Australia, and they're going to stand there in the future when we're all long gone, and they're going to be a testament to the fact that we did matter, we did make a difference, we are Fremantle artists, and that we matter to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Next is Greg James, and then I've got a Tans after Greg. Does that make sense? Tans? Okay, great. Just making sure I said that properly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm really not sure where to start. I'm a bit stressed and a bit tired. It's been a long 33 years. I'll try not to repeat too much of what Jenny's just alluded to, but this has been a pretty amazing adventure. When it started, we had the dubious honour of being able to start off like you're proposing new younger artists start, with bugger all. In a shed that had no power, no water, no toilet. It took me 11 years to get a toilet into Unit 2. Before that, we would run up and down to the toilet at the back of J Shed. At least in those days, the city actually gave us a key to the toilet, which is not quite the same now. Some of the other units that in the J Shed area, they still can't have a key to the toilet. So, you know, that makes it very difficult. And that's not Jay Shed, that's just other artists there that are contributing and doing all sorts of things to make that precinct a great precinct. The Jay Shed thing and my studio isn't just about me. The same with all the other studios. In my studio, for pretty much the entire time that I've been there, I've been sharing that space. I've been mentoring people. I've been training people so that they get to a stage where they can go and start their own practice and be a little bit independent and have some skills to start off with. And a lot of those skills are the things that you don't learn in art school. Art school's fantastic, but art school is very often run and taught by people whose living is to be a teacher. And it's a fabulous thing. But living and making a living as an artist is a little bit different. It takes a whole different set of skills. And we're in a very interesting position where just by having people come and work with us, and they can do that by coming and knocking on our door, and there have been so many. They can see what it means, how to get through things, how to survive a council meeting and how to survive all kinds of stuff that you have to face along the way. Seeing how you can face getting public contracts, what that entails, dealing with galleries, so many little aspects that we don't even think about. So it's great to see people that have come and worked with us in various ways, learn these skills, and people come and work in my studio, they don't go out being a foundry man or woman. I've read in information around that apparently there's an idea that we have this massive heavy industrial thing going on. It's actually quite different. We have a very small scale, light industrial thing happening. We need industrial process to do what we do, to create various sculptures. We use a lot of bronze, but we also work in stone, in metal, all kinds of stuff. So there's so many skills involved in this by people working in that environment. They can gain a lot of skills. But I've also had painters that have worked in the studio. I've had musicians that have come in every Wednesday night for a jam with several bands for years. I've had other drawers and painters coming into the studio on other nights for years for live model sessions. Other people have just come in at times when their own practices, circumstances have meant that they haven't had a place to work. Other long-term, well-established artists that have come in and worked for short-term projects, and we've made that available. We're lucky, well, I guess I'm lucky, to have been able to build a studio up so that we can approach almost any project. So it astounds me. I understand there's people that would love to see the end of us, but it astounds me that you would want to approach this in a way that says when you leave a bare shell. You take out everything you put in. And that means the power, the water, the pipes, the toilet, even the doors we paid for. Why would you want to do that to emerging artists when you don't have to? You can speak to the existing tenants and you can actually listen and you can formulate a plan so that instead of wasting all of the work that we've put in, you can use it. You can use it to help artists come along and get a start. How much value, seriously, how much value is there in saying to someone, "Here, well, here's a lovely big empty shed. Terrific, make a go of that. By the way, you'll freeze your ass off in winter, you'll get blown away in summer. You're going to love it. Do you like dust?" Seriously, does it have to be that basic? I don't believe you thought this through very well. I think there's a lack of understanding of what's there, And, you know, Jim Cathcart, I've never met. In all the years that I've been working in Fremantle, I've never met Jim. I met Pete Stone for the first time the other day when he came to tell us that we're getting chucked out. Isn't there a bit of wouldn't it be great if you guys had actually made an effort some time ago to be familiar with what we do? Not just the fact that it looks like a great space and, oh gosh, wouldn't it be great if I had it? There's been times in J Shed where I've heard the thing so many times, oh, you're so lucky to be here. Yes, I agree.
Greg?
And you're so lucky to have a studio like this.
If you don't, we've gone over your 3 minutes by...
Okay, sorry.
No, I was giving you some leeway there because you're one of the affected parties, but if you could maybe get to the end of your comments when you're able. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, anyway, I'll round up, but I think there's a better way of doing this. I would appreciate to be able to have enough time to move out of J Shed in a reasonable way. In the current layout that you're putting towards us, I've got 6 months worth of commission work that I've got to try and get done by the end of this year, and then it'll mean the next 6 months will be taken out of my work time to move out and try and relocate and set up in another place. That's going to cost 50 to 100 grand that I just don't have in my back pocket. I'd ask you to consider at least voting yes for the amendments. Thank you for your time.
Right, thank you, Greg. All right, and I'll just remind members of the public when you're speaking, when you hear the alarm, that means your 3 minutes have up, and if you could, get to the end of your comments as quickly as possible after that. We appreciate that, because there's a lot of speakers here tonight. So, Tans is speaking
Tanu,
after.
yeah, that's right.
Tans,
Sorry,
we'll
my
have-
handwriting's real bad.
That's all right. Well, Callie will be on deck after this.
All right, cool. So I'm getting up here because I'm saying it's probably good for a change. When some of the people got those sheds, I was 5 years old, so I couldn't go for those sheds. I actually got to use Unit 1 for 10 months in 2018. I was 21 when I got that opportunity. And during that time, so pretty much Sunset Events, which probably, yeah, all right, probably not my favourite company either, but they said, here, have it for 2 years, make a community space. And in that time, I did Indigenous-led community talks. I had 100 bands, musicians. I had theatre pieces in there. I had a local movie come in. I did 50 live drawing classes. I did a record swap meet. I did markets. I did 5 community fundraisers for some unfortunate people in Freo, and I built a community. I even had Dorinda Cox in there, and she's like the minister, well, not minister, she's the Green spokeswoman for Indigenous Affairs. So I had that, and then I was lobbied out at the age of 21. So that was cool. If you want it for young people, then you should have done it then. I also had it open for about 10 hours a day, and we had sometimes 7,000 people come through during that time. I had it for 10 months. I got all that done, right? And then we lobbied out Sunsets. Probably not a bad idea. They had some bad long-term plans that I didn't know about, but whatever. And then I applied for it, and I think we had a bit of cold feet from the council at the time. They didn't want to give it to me. So since then, it's been a bit sad. It's been sitting there, Unit 1. It's had one person in it. I've tried to enter multiple times. It's been taped up. I can't enter because there's been some forklifts there, and it's been too dangerous to enter, so that's not very good for the community. Right, I will be probably putting my hat in the ring for this EOI because I've been trying to see something happen for 8 years. It's been there for 8 years. I am 31 now, right? And I was 22, 23 when, something like that. The math is there. But I'll be putting my hat in the ring because I don't want to see it die like it has for the last that long, pretty much. And people are going, let's give it to young people and stuff. I'm still pretty young, so let's do it.
Great, thank you. Callie, and then after Callie, be Mark Davis.
Hi, hi Mayor and elected peoples. I've never done this before. I just came here on a whim because I knew this was on the agenda. I'm not an artist who's gone to uni. I'm not young. I'm far from young. But I am an artist. I'm an emerging artist, and I represent 13 emerging artists that are in their 50s and 60s. We don't get funding. We're that forgotten generation of women who've raised our children alone or through hardship and are now finding our feet in the arts world and loving it. And we've come together as a community of supporting each other. We can't find art spaces. We're really stuck. We're not young and exciting and vibrant. We don't have amazing Instagram followings. We just want to come together, support each other as community and paint together. And opportunities like what the city offer are opportunities that we really want to throw our hat into. I really feel for the artists in Jay Shed that have been there for so long. I really think they should be given time to move. But when you come talk about some of those houses up on the Captain's Lane and Trivet Lane, they're empty. I'm sorry. They might have people in them, but their doors are closed. You go up there on the weekend and it's like a ghost town. I've got 13 women that want to make it vibrant, want to laugh together, not be lonely at home. I mean, older women are just left out. We just want to paint together, open our doors, bring other women in to paint together. You can give us that opportunity. So I'm all for older artists being given a go, not necessarily young ones. I think we should all come together in support of each other because, believe it or not, us oldies know a few things. Yeah, that's all I want to say. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of throwing a hat into the ring. I hope you do it kindly to the people that are there, but I'd love to see that place vibrant again. It's not. Okay, I think Jay Sheds is. I have been down there and spoken to people down there. They probably don't remember me, but those houses sit derelict in some cases and just unused and unloved. Allow some new people to bring in some love again. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Kelly. Mark Davis, and then after Mark, Bryn Evans.
Hi, I'm Mark Davis. I'm seven generation Fremantle, so the family goes back a little bit. We know a little bit about it. I just want to talk a bit about the Jay Shed because I have connections with it, to say what it is. We talked about trying to find an empty shed. Well, Shed Forward was empty for more than 2 years, as I remember. Nobody filled it. The present occupants of that shed don't utilise it. There is opportunities to put people in there, but there's also opportunity now to give the people leaving decency and give the people that have been there and took the place when it was falling down, an empty shed. I don't know if you people have seen the pictures. I have them for you and I can deliver them to you, of the shed as it was before they moved in. It was an empty shed. Apparently, Gina has been given initially 4 months, Shed 1, and now she's given 6 months. And what does that mean? She's a small business. She's got 6 months. She's got to find somewhere to go. She's got to get council approval. She's got to put air filters and equipment into that. And then she's got to move 50 tonne of rock in 6 months. What expense is that? And you know what she's doing for the city at the moment? She's sculpturing 2 sculptures for the city, one for the bridge and one for the police station. So the major artist that's sculpturing 2 major sculptures for this city is being thrown out to the street. And none of you people who are going to vote against the amendment tonight, how many have been down there and talked to the artists? How many have been down there and seen what they do down there? See the amount of people that work down there. Between Sheds 1 and 3, there's 10 people working in those sheds. And sometimes there's 20 in a week. Those people are about to lose their jobs. Those businesses are about to be thrown out. It's not good enough. Vote for the amendment, give them decency, otherwise Fremantle could lose its reputation as an arts capital. You won a tourist award, and one of those tourist awards is mainly in the back of Glenn Cowan's, 5-star TripAdvisor. That award was just won. And if you don't treat him with some decency, your reputation as an arts city will go down the hill. And by the way, just a little bit more about me. I run in Freo on Instagram. I have 28,000 followers. And I can tell you, most of those people, as I put out a small video today, the feedback from them wasn't pretty. And it's not going to be pretty if you don't give these people some respect in leaving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We got Bryn Evans, and after Bryn, Peter. Ooh, another Peter. If there's more than one, we'll just see who gets up there first. All right, thanks, Bryn.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm not an artist and I'm not well connected with anyone in the arts community. I'm just here really to speak around the process that I've seen some examples of around expressions of interest, and then speak to the specific issue around Mandaree. The last time I addressed council was in 2020, and that was regarding the Sunset Markets at South Beach. It's an event that was frequented by many hundreds of people on a Saturday evening in summer, including many families and children. By any measure, it had demonstrable community benefit. At the time, I was concerned that council's actions were creating uncertainty, and that was corrosive for the event, for the confidence of the event, putting the viability of it at risk. The following year, council voted to instigate an expression of interest process, which garnered no tenders, and all of this coincided with a council election during which the city declared publicly that the Sunset Markets were not dead. Since that announcement, there hasn't been a single market at South Beach, nor has the city corrected the public record with a statement of the obvious that the Sunset Markets are in fact dead and the city's process killed it. Similar things have occurred over the years, such as the cafe at Fremantle Arts Centre, the neighbourhood sauna, again down at South Beach, and whilst not specifically relating to an expressions of interest process, I do note with a lack of certainty around the Lovers Cafe in White Gum Valley. They noted on Monday online that they might have to shut their doors given the parking issues that they are having. Now, these businesses contribute to the vibrancy of our community and make Fremantle a place worth living. To me, certainty breeds confidence, and confidence is the lifeblood of these businesses. Tonight, you're being asked to decide on the future of more small businesses, this time at Mandaree through yet another expressions of interest process. Respectfully, given the track record that I've outlined, you could forgive me for being sceptical of a positive outcome. Surely our community would be better served through a city-led collaborative framework where we seek to use cooperation and support for the arts and small businesses, not eviction, to build on the success of what's already been achieved there? Or are we consigned to seeing the artists at Mandaree to be the next inductees to the City of Fremantle Expressions of Interest Hall of Fame? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bryn. All right, we have Peter, and then after Peter, Peter, oh, it could be a G-A-R. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, Peter. Great. Then we have David Mora, and after David, Claudia. Is there a David here? Great. Thank you, David.
Honourable Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors, thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight. I don't need 3 minutes. I think Greg, James and Jen Dawson and others have covered well what I was going to talk about, but I will add a couple of things. I really think it's important to recognise the asset that we have in Jay Shed and the associated studios. They've done an incredible job. I was involved with Greg. I worked for him for 5 years. I've known all of the artists there for 10 years. My relationship continues. I have the utmost respect for them. They are educators, they're employers, they're artists at the top of their game. They have an enormous knowledge and experience. And no, they do not expect to be allowed to stay there forever. But I think a humane dealing with them is absolutely necessary for the city to maintain its reputation. They need adequate time to get out. So I would urge you to vote for the amendment and allow them to continue their good work until they can, in an organised manner, find another place to go. I'll just urge you all, while they're still there, this is the visitor's book that is in Greg James' studio, the gallery upstairs. There's a lot of them. And the members of the public that write in this book are incredibly complimentary and recognise the brilliant job that Jay Shed and the associated studios do. So please consider the humanity of all of this and vote for the amendment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. Claudia, and then Cheryl Stedman will be after Claudia.
Well, I certainly didn't expect to be back here. I thought my days of doing this were over, but this is far too important. I would like to follow on from the previous speaker who spoke about process. I'm extremely concerned about that, having been involved with issues as the chairperson of the chairperson of the Ratepayers Association. We've also been working with FICRA, and I don't wish to repeat much or any of what has been said because it's been absolutely wonderful. But I would like to bring up something, and that is I'm asking that you do not support the delivery of the expression of interest process, outlined within this report to identify suitable arts cultural uses within the Mangaree Bathers Beach precinct. The most significant reason is that it's unnecessary, expensive and unclear as to why an EOI process is needed, as everything that is being asked for or perceived as lacking is already available. As someone who has significant and considerable meaningful involvement in the civic concerns and governance of the City of Fremantle, through my work as chairperson of the Fremantle Ratepayers Association from about 2011 until 2017, when I stood for council, from which which required an association with FICRA, from whom you've received a critical submission, and I urge you to take that into account, and as a candidate for City Ward twice. I wish in the first instance to reiterate and substantiate the importance of the concerns addressed by the convener of FICRA in her submission, and ask that those big concerns be foremost in your minds before you make your decision. In other words, if it ain't broken, why fix it? And much work has been done and is being done, as we heard tonight. Considerable work was done over many years in a collaborative and collegial method to achieve the outcomes that are being sought. Were these people consulted? I don't think so. And yet, what could be more community than a long-time inner-city residents association in the very West End impacted by this proposal? Raoul Lupers has forcefully and openly asked questions of the questioners in his blog Freeview, including pointing out the current role and success of the artists, already tenants, in the Bathers Beach precinct. And he has also succinctly pointed out, maybe bluntly, that many of the concerns demonstrate that more attention needs to be paid to the process and the reasons culminating in the request for the delivery of an expression of interest, EOI process, than acceptance and a support of it. In other words, why? It is not clear. As ex-chairperson of Ratepayers Association and also manager of procurement with the state government, Treasury and Finance for 10 years, I would like to address the dubious record the city has in delivery of expression of interest processes. That alone should be a reason the elected members do not support the recommendation. They have a fiduciary duty of care which has primacy over ideology and, quote, thought bubbles. Thank you, Raoul. It's ringing alarm bells the size of Big Ben for those of us with lived experience. The first example that cost ratepayers thousands of dollars was the ill-fated, outrageous Sunset Events saga that went on for years and sadly was perpetuated by the involvement of the city in fighting the case for the proposers in the Planning Commission at ratepayers' expense. This saga started off the same way they all have in my living memory. The perceived fetish of some councillors that artists' heads needs activation.
If you don't mind wrapping up your comments, Claudia,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
The process that was followed at that period, it resulted in not a particularly good outcome. There was a bad scope. It didn't end well. I'm going to hand this in so that it's a document that
Thank
you
you.
can see. I would like to suggest, as per the guy that spoke about the process before, to me this is one of the most significant issues that's here. It's just not good. And the city has got to do something about the way it deals with this issue. He outlined half a dozen other sagas we've had over the last 10, 15 years, none of which have ended well, because the city does not do it well. So please do not support yet another potential disaster. I want to shout out and support all the other comments that have made about Jay Shed. I've been down there many, many times. And I think, as most people have said, if you had been down there, you might think twice about the approach that's being taken at the moment.
Thank you, Claudia. We appreciate that. Next is Cheryl Stedman, and then after Cheryl Stedman, I've got Peter Walter. Yep. Thank you, Cheryl.
Good evening, and thank you for having me speak.
You might have to
tonight.
get closer to the microphone or tip it
I'm
down.
too short.
There you go. Thank you.
I hadn't really intended to speak tonight unless I had thought, listening to everybody else, that it would be of some use. I'm an artist. I've started being an artist back in the 80s, but then decided that I couldn't make a good living. Unlike these other brave people who took a plunge and invested and worked to develop their practices in Fremantle. I moved to Fremantle at the early 20s when I started a clinical psychology private practice here. That's how I ended up making a living. But now I'm retired and I'm back painting in my shed, tin shed in backyard, hot in summer, cold in winter, but it works. So I would love to have had the luxury of a proper studio, but you know, I'm okay where I am. But what I think I would really like to say is that within our community, within our society, we do need to respect senior people. We do need to respect artists who, make their way in life, because it's a very, very hard journey. Knowing that I tried to do that earlier and then changed my track. I respect these people that work down there, and I go down there quite a lot walking my dog and stuff, and I pop into the studios and talk to people, and I've had encouragement from them about rekindling my own art life. And I believe that we need to have more respect, more genuine concern about fellow human beings, rather than individual people's ambition or sense that they weren't given a chance. We all have to make our own chance and take it. And I think that these people deserve honour and respect as they decide to leave and are ready to leave. And I ask the council to make sure that as this winds down, if it does, and hopefully it won't, and I'm sure my name is in that book because I've signed in there before. So, I've been going there for quite a while, and I think really we need to have more concern about general mentality within our community, about compassion and consideration and respect for those who've worked and grafted and done well. And I applaud those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. That was perfect timing as well. Peter Walter?
Okay, someone's shorter than me, that's good.
All right, sorry, I've got notes that I've been holding all night and now they've disappeared. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, all right. So most of you know me. I've been living in Fremantle for 40 years and I'm very engaged with the arts and lots of cultural things that happen in Fremantle. So the artists who have been occupying the J Shed studios have undoubtedly contributed to Fremantle's cultural life over the years, and we thank you for that. However, after 3 decades in one of the most, which I believe, spectacular and publicly owned locations in the city, it is reasonable that the broader community should have the opportunity to reimagine how this asset is used. Publicly supportive creative spaces should not become the privilege of any one group, regardless of their history or achievements. The city's decision to open the site to a new expression of interest process is not an attack on the arts. Rather, it is an opportunity to introduce new voices, fresh ideas, and greater equity in access to the highly sought-after community resource. I, in my experience, don't believe the J Shed to be completely thriving. During the Fremantle Biennale, which is a major arts and cultural festival, I didn't see any of the studio doors open. They all remain closed. A truly thriving precinct should be visible, welcoming, and actively engaged with the wider community and visitors. This discussion also presents an opportunity to think more broadly about the future of Arthur Head and Mangeree. For thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, this was a significant gathering place where people met, traded, celebrated, and shared culture. As Fremantle continues to evolve, we should be exploring how these stories can be predominantly represented within our cultural infrastructure. The growing need for a larger home for the Walyalup Aboriginal Cultural Centre is just one example. Imagine a vibrant cultural precinct that introduces workshops, film screenings, language programs, and opportunities for local and international visitors to engage with Aboriginal culture. Such a vision would honour both the deep history of the place, of this place, and the creative future of our city. The City of Fremantle is not destroying an arts precinct. It is creating an opportunity for renewal. After 30 years, it is entirely reasonable to open the doors to a new generation of artists and to new cultural possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any other members in the public gallery that wish to speak during public question time? Rule?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, so I'll keep it very short. If this plan actually was efficient, was showing me that you would get real improvement at Arthur Head, I would absolutely, totally support it. But this is not a plan. This sounds like desperation. It's the same desperation when the City of Fremantle leased out J Shed to Sunset Event. And the reason for that is that, again, the city is not prepared to spend any of their own money on this. There's nothing in the paper that says that you are actually going to improve Arthur Head. Arthur Head has been neglected by the City of Fremantle for as long as I've been in Fremantle, 35 years. You're not doing anything. What you're doing is saying, let's start from scratch and hope for the best. That's not a plan, that's not a vision, that's desperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rule. Any other members of the public that wish to speak?
Hi, Mayor, elected members and staff. Brendan Moore, I obviously worked in City of Fremantle for 16 years, but coming here as a ratepayer as well. So there's 4 things I'd like to briefly, if I can get across to them. First thing is that Mandurah is actually a named place. It's an Aboriginal place. And we have a RAP, that's the second thing. We have a Reconciliation Action Plan that you're all committed to. And that Reconciliation Action Plan commits to an engagement with the First Nations people, the Whadjuk people. And Whadjuk people are behind a different model. So that's the next thing of art procurement. So what I see at the moment is I see artists working, but I don't see anyone other than Sandra Hill engaged in the artworks. Now, respect to Sandra, but for 20 plus years, she's lived in Barlingup. We have a Fremantle RAP Reconciliation Action Plan group that are behind having an engaged artist precinct involving Aboriginal people. And it's a concern of mine that if the councils kick the can down the road and defer another 3 years, it's going to put at stake that relationship. And that's another concern that I have about how this can have ramifications. I do think it needs to be staged, and I won't say anything negative about anyone there, but there were some comments that I noticed in the paper, and one of them stuck out, and it was from an artist, and the artists have been there for 30 years. We don't have a ceramic Noongar artist. Why is that? Where's the engagement? You know what? The engagement is this. Ring up Sandra, she does a little design, and then the rest is done. The fabrication and installation, 95% of the business is not done by Aboriginal people. We want more. I'm speaking on behalf of artists that have called me. We deserve more. And I think we're there. I think I've been here before. I'm not standing here, but the last time this came up, we wanted some change. I hope that there can be a transition, because there's a lot of knowledge that I hope, and it sounded like there could be that transition, and I hope that that occurs. But first of all, I really just can't imagine councillors kicking this down the road for another 3 years. Bicentennial in 2029, I know that the Aboriginal artists want to be involved in fabrication and installation. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak during public question time tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda, and thank you everyone for your comments on the various items. We have, gotta turn the page, hold on. Don't worry, we'll get to the item here in a minute. Any petitions being received tonight? I don't see any, and there's no deputations. There's no presentations. Confirmation of minutes. Can I ask someone to move and second the minutes from the previous meeting? Moved by Councillor Williamson Wong, seconded Councillor Slaughter. All those in favor? That's unanimous, carried. Is there elected member communication? All right, seeing no elected member communication, we'll now move on to reports and recommendations from officers. And given the interest in the last item on the agenda, we will move, let me just get the actual item number here. Item C2606 number 9, which is the Mandurah Bathers Beach expression of interest. Can I ask someone to move the item? Councillor Kamada, seconded by Councillor Williamson Wong. Councillor Kamada, did you wish to open on the item? Great.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lorva. And look, and thank you to the speakers that came in tonight and spoke passionately on both sides of the argument. My only somewhat concern or disappointment is that, you know, we're not a little bit more collaborative about this. It's just a bit disappointing that there's such a clear divide. And I might be very naive, but I didn't think it would be quite at that level tonight. So what I would like to do, if with your permission, Mayor, is move straight into my proposed amendments, if that's...
You have the floor. You can move your
Yeah,
amendment.
I would like to do that, please.
Sure. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Graham seconded. So, yep. So now we'll speak to Councillor Kamada's amendment.
Thank you very much. Look, my proposed amendments are designed to simplify the process as well as allow some breathing space for the long-term tenants who have delivered, I believe, many of the guiding principles that are listed in the vision statement provided in this report. These established artists have developed a welcoming collaborative attraction for visitors as well as provided mentorship for emerging artists from diverse backgrounds and over a number of years. I believe that the current timelines in the report in terms of the delivery of the expression of interest process are unreasonable, and it's only fair that we allow the tenants ample time to fulfil their current commitments and plan accordingly for their next chapter with dignity. I'll leave it at that for now. I'm happy to listen to other people's, other councillors' comments, and then I'll have more to say later. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Kamada. Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. I have some questions to begin with, please, to do with the leasing and the lease terms currently within the Jayshed precinct. I think it's important, many of the comments tonight have talked about the requirement for the tenants to invest significant amounts of money into infrastructure in those spaces and the potential for them to have to spend a significant amount of money in removing that. And I just wanted to clarify a few things on the leasing. The first is whether or not there are any terms within the lease that require us to either subsidise or put money into the infrastructure that has gone in. And likewise, if there is a term that requires us to commit money when a lease ends in assisting somebody out of that rental location. The other question that I have around leases is to do with the notice periods, but I might come to that as a second question and we can answer the first one first, please.
Great. I'll put that to the CEO.
Through the Mayor, I'll take those ones. The lease provisions will require that tenants make good when they leave, but that will be a negotiation at the time, yep. So at the moment, it would be that they would remove everything, subject to conversation about how you make good at the end of the period.
Right, so I guess my understanding from that is that it doesn't, our decision tonight, whether or not we endorse an amendment or otherwise, doesn't mean that the tenants will have to take anything out. We're not committing to that at this point. That would be an administrative decision and negotiation.
Through the Chair, at the moment, all we are asking Council to consider is the EOI process to look at letting properties out. The current tenants, of course, are more than welcome to apply through that EOI process as well. So at the moment, we're not talking about an end-of-term situation.
Right. If I can continue, I just have another question about leasing. A good reminder about the application process. The other question I have really is around the notice periods and the reasonableness or unreasonableness. My understanding is that the current tenants in all of the spaces that are within the EOI process are on month-to-month holding leases, which would, as a standard procedure for leases, only require 30 days notice, and we seem to be giving them either 12 months or 6 months. Is that correct?
Yep, through the Chair. Most month-to-month tenancies do require only a 30-day period. The current provision for units 2 and 3 do require a 12-month notice period, though, in the lease agreement.
Any comments on the proposed amendment? Councillor Sullivan.
So just a clarification on that question. So the tenants of 2 and 3 in signing up to the lease that they've now had for some considerable time agreed to the 12-month termination period. That was part of the agreement at the time.
Just through the chair, that is in the current lease agreement, yeah, and was a council directive at the time of going into that lease.
I have a question about the lease periods. Do we know how long the current tenants have been on month-to-month rolling lease agreements?
No, I don't know that answer, not through me.
Through the chair, it varies, but 2 to 3 years for some of them.
So about month leases for 2 to 3 years. Right, thank you. Councillor Slaughter, you are next in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had another question, and that is over the period referred to, the last 2 to 3 years, or the last period of rolling leases for the current tenants, has the 12-month exit notice period ever been renegotiated or brought up or tried to be extended?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yes, same line following up. How many years ago now was it that the tenants 2 and 3 went to monthly? And so, what I'm trying to ask and get clarification on is how long have they been effectively monthly, but with the knowledge that termination could only occur 12 months from any given date within their monthly situation?
Look, through the chair, for units 2 and 3, we would say that they're in a holding over period. Yep. Because they hadn't been given the 12 months notice.
So when was the end of their more permanent lease, roughly?
Through the chair, I don't know exactly.
Is it weeks, years?
A couple of years, I think.
Thank
but
you.
I don't know exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was seeking, an understanding of the situation of the potential for a 12-month termination clause has been going for a couple of years and could have been enacted at any stage.
Is that a question or was that a statement, Councillor Sullivan?
It's a question. It's got a question mark at the end.
Okay, just making sure.
Through the chair, yes, I believe it could have been enacted at any stage. It was agreed to, I believe, in 2021 as a council resolution that the 12 months notice period would be afforded to those particular tenants.
Right. Councillor Moughlin.
Thanks. I might as well continue with the questions. Just to be clear, and going to the specifics of what's being proposed as an amendment, what we have in the item itself, as I understand it, they are indicative timings in the actual item as it stands at the moment. So the 6-month notice given to tenants and 12 months to tenants of Unit 2 and 3. Noting that they are, terms of existing leases, is there room for officers as part of a process, which we are talking to here, to have those varied without us having to commit to the proposed amendments? If there is as some of the artists have spoken to, longer periods of time which might be needed to complete works or transition out of those spaces. So rather than the amendment as it stands at the moment, is there leeway for officers to have a more flexibility in negotiating with current tenants?
Through the chair, it's always possible to negotiate surrender terms, absolutely. The proposal in the report is an indicative indication and may vary a little bit, but it is the general intention of what officers propose to do. And that's subject to council decision tonight, of course.
Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thanks. Another question from me. The 2 amendments listed in the agenda are talking about extending the timeframes for notice periods, obviously. And I'm also well aware that not only the Manjari vision to kind of create continue the vibrant cultural precinct, but also to align with 2029. And there's been extensive work done by the city, by the RAP, as Brendan mentioned, to ensure that when we reach the bicentennial, which is an important date and an important part of our reconciliation journey at the city, that there would be a Manjari precinct to kind of support that, perhaps would be the right way to phrase it. Is there any indication of how the amendments might impact on us to be able to deliver that, noting that some of the notice periods would expire at the end of 2029? What's the response from staff on that, on the impact to the plans for 2029?
Through the chair, so I guess a couple of main concerns. One would be responding to community in a timely fashion. This, as we know, and we've heard tonight, this is a conversation that has been in the council since about 2012. We did wrap up the public consultation around the new vision, which was endorsed by council last year. Moving tenants out and in during 2029 is probably not an ideal scenario in terms of what we're looking to achieve in that area at that time. That is a significant year for the city, of course, and for the wider state. And as first point of contact, it's obviously a key place.
I asked a question about 2029. I'm on the understanding that 2029 is about reconciliation and bringing the colonial history and Indigenous history kind of together. That's kind of our intention as a council to acknowledge both of those. Is that also the intention for the Manjari precinct, to have both colonial and also highlight the Aboriginal cultures as well?
Yeah, through the chair, the endorsed vision clearly states that we will be looking to present all history as colonial and Indigenous.
Are there any other questions on the amendment? No. Are there any comments on the amendment? Councillor Graham.
I can't resist because I don't have a question. But look, I support the proposed amendment put up by Councillor Kamada. These people don't work in an office. You know, you just can't go in and say, you've got a month's notice, guys, out you go. You know, go and find somewhere else. So it's going to take a lot of time, if this does go through tonight, for them to move on anyway. And I just, hearing from them, they sound quite comfortable with this amendment. That's the vibe I got in public question time anyway. So I think that sort of counts for quite a bit. So with those few thoughts, I will be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thanks. I'm going to speak to the amendment because I won't be supporting the amendment this evening. And I think that there's been obviously significant conversations about this item online since 2012, it seems. And there's no doubt that the impact of all of the artists that the J Shed has seen in the last 30 years has contributed to make it a great cultural precinct, to help incubate new artists and result in artworks that will indeed live on for a very long time. But I don't think that it's correct that proceeding with an EOI as proposed by the officers is a reflection of the city on those artists that are in that precinct. It's actually a reflection of this city being a leader, as some speakers said tonight, having already endorsed our Manjari vision, having already endorsed our strategic community plan, which really point to making sure that we have equitable and open spaces for artists of all stages of their careers. And I also don't think that it's right to say that we are springing this on anyone. I mean, this conversation's been around since 2012. We've already had an age reference. I was 10 in 2012. There were conversations in 2019 and more recently, June and July of last year, with the public engagement program that reached more than 1,300 people. And the community engagement from that vision and purpose found that there is a support for a need for shared, affordable, hireable and mixed tenancy length spaces for creative and community use to benefit more people. 90% of the submissions in our public engagement on the Mandaree vision included support for other artists to have opportunity for a studio or spaces in the area, and finding ways to keep long-standing arts tenants was voiced 2.4%. And I don't bring this up to say that the contribution of the artists that are currently in our tenancies has gone unnoticed. I bring it up to kind of echo the point that Peter Grant and many others have said. There are many, many artists waiting for the opportunity to access spaces, and it just has not been possible for the last 30 years in our J-Shed. The Mandaree vision and purpose, which we have endorsed as a council, provides that Mandaree will be a vibrant, inclusive, creative precinct where First Nations culture, colonial heritage and contemporary arts and culture connect and thrive together, and that Mandaree will provide accessible spaces and opportunities for creative expression, cultural celebration and community connection. And I think it's important for us to think about the strategic objectives we've already set as a council when we're considering this item. Our strategic community plan also notes that we want to make sure there are optimised, accessible and affordable places for creatives. And I do believe that proceeding to an EOI is ensuring that access to these places is equitable and fair. And the strategic community plan also specifically notes that flexible and affordable short-term tenancy options available for emerging and established creative enterprises are important. I also think that there's a few themes that have come up in conversation around this item online and through our inboxes and tonight, which I do want to address, because perception and moving forward is important. And I don't see this item as us saying that we don't support artists. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We've also supported all of the artists that have been able to access J-Shed, whether or not they are the ones currently in those tenancies or previously, at highly subsidised rents, which is a significant support to those artists. Likewise, they've supported us in many ways by delivering, a great precinct. It's open to some people and delivering great artworks. But we're not being unfair by proceeding with an EOI process as outlined in the officer's recommendation. What's fair is that more people have opportunity to access these studios, and I think what's also fair are the notice periods that are included in the officer's recommendation. And as Councillor Moughlin noted, that's not to say that things might not change along the way if there are serious limitations on the ability for people to move out of spaces. But I asked the questions about the leasing terms previously because I think it is important. None of us expect to enter a lease agreement and then all of a sudden be given something completely different. I mean, as much as we want these artist spaces to be accessible and it's a community, facility driven by the city, it's also a commercial transaction in some ways. Well, a lease is a commercial transaction, and I don't think we should lose sight of the, the notice periods being far more than what's required for some of them. And I also asked the question about 2029 because I don't think we should lose sight of that, and it wasn't brought up very much tonight. But 2029 is fast approaching, and it's a very important year for Fremantle and for the state. And Mandaree is an important place for Aboriginal history. It's a meeting place that has long been a site for ceremonies, kinship and cultural exchange. And I hope that council can see that we need to follow through with our commitment to 2029. I actually am deeply concerned about Brendan's comments that for us to not be able to deliver on our commitment to that, it would harm our relationship with our RAP members and our RAP group. The city having a strong relationship and a well-working RAP is amazing, and it is also not achieved without significant work, and I don't want us to lose sight of that within tonight's agenda. I guess finally, the idea that some of these J-Shed tenancies have not turned over in 30 years is quite, I think it should be quite alarming. And someone spoke, and I'm sorry that I don't know who said this, but that, J-Shed is the example in other local governments and around Perth or WA, sorry, I think it was Peter, that means young people can't access spaces. And this matter, yeah, as I said, came before council in 2012 when I was 10, and the idea that 2 generations potentially, you know, have missed out on the opportunity is actually not an exaggeration. And I would hate for us to be sitting here for a council to be sitting here in another 10, 12 years having the same conversation. Because it's true that artists and art, you know, and these cultural precincts are at risk, which is, in my eyes, exactly why it needs to be an equitable process. There's 90% of people who want more access to spaces, and how else do young people have an opportunity? So I think it's important assets of our city are shared, and they should be shared through a transparent and clear process. And I really do believe that the officer's recommendation provides reasonable notice periods. There's been significant conversations. They are, as Councillor Moughlin said, indicative. And so I myself will not be supporting the amendment tonight. I hope that other elected members do also not support the amendment, and that we follow our already endorsed strategies and objectives to ensure that Mandaree continues to thrive as an arts and culture precinct, and also ensure that our First Nations voices, artists, storytelling have a place at Mandaree in 2029, in time for us to reconcile with our history as both an incredibly long history of Aboriginal people and the more recent colonial history here.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Williamson-Wong. Just want to maybe correct a couple of things, and then I'll make my comments, and then we can continue to go around. I'll speak to the amendment. But first, I want to thank all the folks that came to speak this evening. I want to thank the living legends of the Freo arts community, the valuable cultural icons, and I'll make those comments again because they're still true. With 62 public artworks around the place. Gina Lee, your sculptures are everywhere, but working on the artwork for the bridge, the police station, having 50 tons of rock that you might have to move within 6 months. Greg James, you can't hardly walk down the street without tripping over a bronze sculpture that Greg James has done. When Eddie was taken, he poured a new one and put it up within 2 or 3 days, the octopus. That's the commitment. And also Glenn Cowan's gallery. It's the #1 rated gallery on TripAdvisor and other things. Now, history is history. I wasn't here 33 years ago when those leases were first done. I wasn't in this chamber even 5 years ago or 10 years ago when the Sunset Events things was a possibility. But the idea that we would not support a transition for people after that long of a career in those spaces, to me, is kind of appalling, to be honest. Especially when this item, it still gets to that endpoint, but just was showing a little bit of respect and dignity for the folks that have been there and have contributed in so many ways to our city and to our arts community. What this amendment does is it does have the Mandaree vision. It does open up spaces for new and emerging artists. It does do that in the first stage, in the second stage, and the third stage. But what it also does, it allows existing successful artists to mentor those ones that are coming in to a new precinct. It allows the people that are there to finish their current projects and maybe take on some final ones as well, or have the proper time to find a new home. So, this item, it really does accomplish what we want. It doesn't say we're not going to transition from where we are today to a new model. It just says let's do it in a way that provides a little bit of respect and dignity for people that have been there 33 years, yes, but after being there that long, I feel like as a human, we would at least owe people that. Now, it's important, because there were some comments made about what it is that we're wanting down there, and I won't read the whole purpose of the Mandaree precinct, but we've all received around 50 emails on this topic, and I'm just going to read some of the words that other people have said and how I think it might relate to some of the purpose and some of the guiding principles that are in the Mandaree vision. The purpose part of it includes we're a local community, wider state community, and visitors are engaged and welcomed. And some of the comments that we receive from folks include, the artists create a welcoming environment that encourages connection between makers and the public and really do help strengthen community engagement and understanding with the arts. Someone else said J-Shed in particular is highly valued by communities, educational, residential, indigenous, local government, rural, and suburban across the state. Other people said the current artists are an established, welcoming, and collaborative group, providing attraction for visitors, along with opportunities, advice, and collaboration for other artists, particularly emerging and struggling ones, such as myself, living with disabilities, and are currently working on projects for the good of the city of Fremantle that include collaboration with Indigenous artists. And that's been a theme that we heard from a lot of people tonight as well. You know, we want to ensure First Nations leadership, and one of the emails that we got, it says, I'm one of the many First Nation artists that collaborate with Jenny Dawson. I'd like to say I'm very saddened to hear that the community consultation has been flawed. Someone else said, I have a long history of mentoring and supporting up-and-coming artists, in particular Indigenous communities. Someone else that they identified, they said, I'm a Whadjuk, Wandani, Pibblman, Menang, and Noongar elder and custodian, and they've been working collaboratively with Jenny specifically since 1996. So if we want a place to belong and contribute, so one of the emails that we received says, during our visits to Fremantle, the J-Shed has always stood out as a place of authenticity, creativity, and community. It's one of the few places where visitors can engage directly with local artists and see the city's creative spirit in action. This is not something that can be replaced or replicated elsewhere. Place of cultural significance, you know, they've created their own retail community linked, works to a level that have won awards, work cooperatively with local Noongar artists, mentored up-and-coming artists, organized workshops, built up a clientele while maintaining an open-door policy. A place that thrives and evolves. One email said that they've been involved with J-Shed for over 30 years and have witnessed the difficulties and challenges these artists have had to endure over that time, and their ability to survive and thrive in this space has been a credit to them. That they've watched the Bathers Beach Art Precinct go from nothing to a vibrant arts hub where many of the artists go for support and mentoring. You know, the buildings at J-Shed were empty sheds with not even a single door access and no electricity and fittings. The improvements were all done by the tenants with little or no input from the council. And someone else said about the place that thrives and evolves, said one of the things that impresses them most is that the studios are not static display spaces. They're active work in studios for locals and visitors to see artists practicing their craft in real time. So as far as what we're hoping to do with the Mandurah Precinct, personally, I feel like what's there, especially for those tenants, they're doing a lot of it, if not all of it already. And the fact that we can open up spaces for new people, we can do a stage process that allows the new tenants to come in and be mentored by people that have been successful in that area. I think that's a win-win. And for me, I'll be supporting this amendment because it does just that. And after 3 years, or the timing here, if the current tenants do not want to apply for an EOI, then yes, they'll have the 1 year that they can use to get their stuff out of it. But this at least gives a little bit of dignity, a little bit of, you know, I don't know, just respect for the work that these people have done over those 33 years. And yeah, personally, I think this is probably the least we can do as a council and as a community. Support artists that are new and emerging, support artists that might be in the final years of their professional careers. I think that is something that I'm happy to support and something I'm happy to do. So once again, I see this amendment as supporting our vision, doing it in a way that respects existing businesses as well, existing long-term artists as well. So I'm happy to support the amendment from Councillor Kamada. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you. As a business owner, we closed down one of our businesses, and we're in a different kind of business. We're in a retail business. But we closed down our store in Leederville a couple of years back, and it is a huge effort to close something down, especially if you've been there for a very long time. We'd been in that location for 16 years. But we also, you know, the current tenants have been in this location, obviously, for decades, as discussed. They've also been invited to join in the expression of interest. It's a, you know, unsettling situation to know if you don't have a future lease or not, and we're trying to introduce a process that does bring some certainty to that. But adding in another 2 years to extend that time frame and not knowing if you're going to be successful in that expression of interest just adds in more uncertainty, I would have thought. 12 months to be able to close down, with the exception, I understand there's a forgery and I understand that there's a lot of rock down there at the moment, 12 months to close down a business is a very generous time period. It's very generous for anyone who's not got physical things that would come with a forgery and those sorts of things. And I am hearing that if there are projects on the way and things that will impact severely those people who do need the extended time to shut down, then our officers will talk to them about that. And hopefully negotiate that with them so that has the least amount of impact if they are leaving. So I won't be supporting the amendment this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Van Dorsen just beat Councillor Sullivan to the buzzer. Councillor Van Dorsen.
Thank you, Mayor Lorva. Listen, thank you everyone for coming to speak tonight. It's good to hear from the community. It really does. Just feels like we've had all points of view, like a bit of a representative presentations tonight, which is great and really helped with our decision making. On the amendment itself, I won't be supporting the amendment. Similar to Councillor Clark, I don't understand delaying the EOI process 24 months to 2028, giving the existing tenants an additional 2 years. I think it creates more uncertainty. I don't understand I really just don't understand why giving 2 more years, like in terms of the moving, yeah, I understand. I think 12 months, or certainly for Unit 1, perhaps with Gina with the rocks, maybe she'll need some more time. 6 months may be a little bit short, but I trust that our officers will negotiate with Gina all in good faith and work with her. And again, pending the outcomes of the EOI, potentially she's successful. I do think, again, the conversation's been going on many, many years, and the existing tenants are aware this was coming, and especially on the back of our Mandarin vision that was endorsed last year. So I think it's not a surprise or shock to anyone. And I just don't support the amendment because I don't see why we would delay an EOI, especially the EOI part. Like, that shouldn't be delayed. Maybe you need more time to move if you're not successful. Maybe there needs to be some more time on the back end, but not so much delaying an EOI for till 2028 when we have the 2029 coming up, which is very important for Fremantle, and we need, I don't know what the outcomes of the EOI, but existing tenants do have the opportunity to apply and encourage you to, because you do contribute wonderfully to our community. But that's where I'm at on the amendment.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of words that have been used quite a lot tonight are respect and fairness. And I think they're the sort of words that we ought to have at the forefront of our decision making always. I won't support the amendment, and there's a couple of fairly significant reasons why. I think that there has been, from the professional art community members in Fremantle, and by that I say the City of Fremantle's professionals in this area, but also in previous iterations and the more recent strategy iteration, we have had artists, senior artists, who are very highly respected in Fremantle, try and come together and suggest to council, put forward to council, what it is that we should be doing with those amazing facilities. What is the role of the City of Fremantle to be the curator of those of that precinct? And these weren't suggestions. There was a comment that was made that was regarding, is this the officers pushing this forward, or is this the councillors pushing this forward? Well, I know in my experience over this whole journey that I have tried to follow and respect the arts community of Fremantle, who have been putting this forward for some considerable time. And the problem was the politicians, us guys, kept kicking it down the road because it was too hard. So we were being asked by certain sectors of our community and we listen to that sector to basically disrespect the arts community and our professional arts administrators here to just ignore all of the hard work that was put together to talk about curating the Arthur Head precinct, the Manjari precinct, the Bathers Beach precinct, etc. Now that's, 14 something years ago, a lot of water under the bridge, here we are again. So when we talk about respect, I have the utmost respect for the artists that have been involved in those areas for all of this time. The ones who are currently there, the ones who have been there temporarily or in the past. And I don't think there would be anyone in this room that wouldn't have sympathy for anyone having to relocate their operations, whether they be commercial operations, whether they be community-based operations, whether they are of an artist endeavour type operations. No one wants to move home. It is the most stressful thing that anybody can do, according to a lot of reports. So we all know that it's a horrible experience to have to go through, and sometimes life-changing in the sense that, oh, bugger it, I'll just retire or whatever. And I've been through that, and I've had experiences with, being on monthly tenancies and the like, and landlords that aren't very accepting or very sympathetic. Are we being sympathetic? Are we being reasonable? Are we being fair in this environment? I think we are. I mean, the reality is the notice, in a sense, that the city, the council, should be the curator of this precinct has been on the agenda for 15 years. That's a fair bit of notice. But not just that. The tenancies have been told that we're looking at change for at least the last 2 years and have been put on that monthly because of that. But also, in fairness, an acknowledgement that it is difficult to relocate. They were given a 12-month opportunity, which we have said in the officer's report that we would honour. And I am absolutely sure that our professional staff, that if a situation arises where reasonable circumstances are put in front of them to suggest that, look, can you make it 9 months? I've got a project that finishes on this such and such a date. Then that would probably be something that our staff would look at. They're not, they're like us. They're sympathetic, all right? Nothing tells me otherwise. So I think the idea that we would start saying that this is not a fair situation just doesn't compare to virtually every other situation that I know out there in the real world. Now, I witnessed Greg move his foundry from Henry Street, I think it was at the time, to J-Shed all those years ago. I know it's not an easy operation. And that's, probably the worst of it. But sooner or later, it has to happen. And this notion that, well, couldn't we just have another couple of years so we can maybe get some new projects and do a few new projects? That's what was said 14 years ago, right? That was the same argument that was used 14 years ago, that it's, I've got so many projects I've got to complete. So we can't just keep making the same failed decision all of these years later. So I won't support it. I think the officers have come forward with a really sound and a really fair and a really respectful approach to this. And the only thing that is stopping the City of Fremantle properly curating that amazing space is this mob here, us. So we have to make that decision.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Moughlin.
Councillor Slaughter's microphone's not working.
Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you. Yeah, it just keeps turning off itself when it tries to start up again. I agree with both Councillor Williamson-Wong and Councillor Sullivan, Clark and Van Dawson in the fact that I think the officers have got this document right and it is time to go to an EOI process, so I won't be supporting this amendment. And that is not without respect to the current artists and the current leaseholders. And I know, Mayor, you asked our speakers not to assign motivation to their comments, and yet we were told, you've not been there, you wouldn't know. However, I have very often been down there, and you may not recognise me because doors are often closed. Not always, but they are closed, or they're roped off, or you can watch from a distance. It's not always an inclusive, welcoming space for everyone. Yes, there has been amazing products come out of JShed, and I think that through the existing councillor's recommendation for the EOI and the staged process of that with the J sheds 1 through 4 coming first and then moving up the levels, it does help us meet our probity and statutory requirements of how we manage our properties, and to have a structured process will be much better moving forward than 3+ years of month-to-month rolling leases. If you had a month-to-month rolling lease and you knew you had a 12-month notice period and you took on more work that would see you in that space beyond that time, that's an individual business decision that shouldn't rest on the council's shoulders to extend that time further. That's not up to us to have to manage. That's a personal business decision in my mind. Flexible creative spaces have existed there and will continue to exist there under the purpose and vision. And emerging artists doesn't mean young necessarily, it just means emerging. So we will be catering for a range of different artists based on the wording of the EOI, or the intent of the EOI so far. It was very heartening to hear that it's always possible to negotiate surrender terms, as said by our Chief Executive Officer this evening. So I look forward to hearing back that the existing tenants are treated with respect and dignity as they negotiate the next steps of the process.
Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. I suppose this conversation that we're having about the amendment as well presupposes that the current tenants are, maybe unsuccessful or don't participate in the EOI process. And I would before I speak to the details around this timeline that's being proposed, I would strongly urge all of the current tenants to participate and to think about the vision that the city does have for that area and see how their work can contribute to that into the future. And absolutely, the current tenants have made a fantastic contribution to Fremantle and to the arts in that location. But through a significant period of consultation, the city has developed a new vision for that area, and it's absolutely our prerogative and our community's prerogative to develop that vision. And what's before us tonight is the path to be able to contribute to and realise parts of that vision. And we, 12 months ago, endorse the revised vision, purpose and principles. So that's 12 months since that came before us as a council, and we're now in a position where we're looking at the process to transition, if you like, and having that in front of us. And for me, what has then been proposed by officers adequately deals with, as Councillor Sullivan spoke to, the fairness and the just that transition in a just fashion for those people if they do not want to participate or are unsuccessful in that EOI process. If we were to adopt this amendment tonight, that would mean at least another 2 years on top of this year that we've already had since the vision was adopted, and then potential for another year on top of that. So we're talking 4 years since the adoption of that vision, and then potentially again for those areas to be activated. So that could be someone leaving that premise 4 years after we adopted the vision, and then subsequently again for that site to be activated. I'm not sure how long that might take. That might take another 6, 12 months. So it could be up to 5 years or so since we adopted that vision before we actually see anything being realised down there. So for myself, that's just, to use the term, kicking the can down the road for way too long, and I'm not supportive of the amendment and will support the officer's recommendation this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Just pointing out that stage 1 on the proposed amendment does start in September 2026, just so there would be a beginning sooner. Are there any other comments on the proposed amendment? Seeing none, we'll put that up for a vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kamada, yes. Do you wish to close?
Yeah, I'd like
thank
to
you.
close. Thank you, and just make my comments. I appreciate the comments of other elected members. Don't necessarily agree with a lot of them, but that's fine. That's what we're here for. These amendments are designed to still achieve what everybody wants to achieve overall, but to give it's still a stage process. Brendan Moore spoke about having a stage process and the need for transition, which I agree 100%. Peter Grant spoke about balance and good grace. He's right, 100%. Because once you lose lived experience, it's gone forever. And we have an opportunity to transition this site with good grace, and we shouldn't waste it, regardless of what happens in this vote. Kelly, I'm not sure of your surname, you spoke about there are already empty spaces like Unit 4 and other cottages. Why haven't they been activated for young artists? And we've got to concentrate on J-Shed and moving them on. I don't know why there's such a focus. I haven't been on council as long as some people, but I can't work it out. So, and I can see where this is going to go, that's fine. And I would hope that the people from J-Shed do enter the expression of interest process and that they are treated on their merits as they deserve to be. So, yeah, I'll close at that. There's no point going on about why I would like people to support this amendment because it's been made clear where people's thoughts lie. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, we'll put the amendment up for a vote. All those in favour? That's Councillors Graham, Kamada, Mayor Lawver. All those against? That's Councillors Moughlin, Councillor Slaughter, Councillor Van Dorsen, Councillor Clark, Councillor Sullivan, and Councillor Williamson Wong. The amendment is lost. All right. Then I'm just going to go ahead and move my amendment then really quick because it's a very similar thing. Is there someone to second the amendment? Councillor Kamada? Great. And I won't belabor the point because I think we just had a really good discussion. But one of the things that was mentioned, so this amendment is basically to just give a 3-year notice period for the same processes. So if they're unsuccessful, that would give some of the tenancies at J-Shed and Glen Cowan Studio the time to exit out of their business and to find a new home in an orderly fashion. Because as it was said, we can still transition this precinct. The same process that is in the item before us will go. It'll just be these people will have a little bit longer time. There'll still be all the empty buildings that are up there now. Those will go first, and this will give some time. Because while it's been mentioned that we could negotiate exiting terms, that's very possible. But we'll be negotiating with people who have told us very clearly how they feel. And my takeaway is that they don't feel very good about this. So in the current lease, it is make good. And making good means 33 years ago, it was an empty shell. So all the toilets that are in there, gone. The kiln, gone. The gallery space, the second floor, gone. The furnace, gone. All the offices that have been built over time, gone. In fact, the empty shells, some of them won't even have a door. That's the current lease that we have. But if we are able to provide some transition where people are okay with how they're exiting the space, we might be negotiating with people that have a little bit more goodwill. Now, this is a real risk. It's not a certainty. I'm not going to pretend that it's a certainty, but it is a risk because we have been told how people feel about the item that are currently in there. And I didn't feel like that they felt very good about it. So I'll leave my comments about this item at that and see if there's any other comments. Councillor Kamado?
Yeah, the only comment I'll add, so let's shift, look through my notes and so much has been covered. But yeah, I believe that as we transition towards a new vision, the people that have spoken today from JSHED said they want to give back, they want to be part of it, and I think they should be part of it. And I think this is a way to ensure they have some certainty in being part of that transition.
And seeing no other comments, I will just put the proposed amendment up for a vote. All those in favour? Councillor Graham, Councillor Kamado, Mayor Lawver, all those against. Councillor Moughlin, Councillor Slaughter, Councillor Van Dorsen, Councillor Clark, Councillor Sullivan, and Councillor Williamson Wong, and that amendment is lost. We are now back to the IDA officer's recommendation. All right, and in case we lost track, Fidel is the only person that opened debate on this. No one else has spoken on the item. Does anyone wish to speak on the item before us? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. When the artist studios at Manjari were established decades ago, around 1989, some of us were 5 years old, I think you said. I was in high school still, so that's a long time ago. So for almost 40 years, the studios have provided a place where artists and creatives can establish a practice, build a successful career, and earn a living. The studios are a rare asset. They're a community asset. The location is extraordinary. The leases are equally extraordinary with heavily subsidised rents. They're currently around 50 to 55% below their market value. And they've been less than that in the past, again. The studios are both a benefit and a privilege in many ways. So when a unique public arts space is leased in Fremantle by the city under these extraordinary conditions, it's reasonable to assume that other artists in the community would appreciate the opportunity to be considered to lease them too. But that becomes difficult when access to those spaces remains largely fixed for extensive periods of time, and there is no process to consider alternative applications or uses for the precinct. For anyone who didn't take the time to read the engagement report, the consultation process commenced in June 2025. This has not been a last-minute thought bubble. Over 4,000 people subscribed to the city engagement newsletters alone. Of the people who responded with feedback, about 29% did so through in-person meetings. The city team met with local Whadjuk and elders and community members. Over 6 government agencies were spoken to: DPLH, Lottery West, Tourism WA, individuals and organisations from the arts and creative industries, and the current tenants from the Manjari area. The notable feedback with regards to the studios was calls for other artists, especially emerging, to have opportunity for a studio or spaces in the area, and this was voiced by 90% of the respondents to that question. As a council, we have a responsibility to the broader community, to our creatives, our community groups, and our future generations. The consultation delivered a clear message: this precinct should be more accessible and beneficial to all. We need the missing process to deliver that. The word that I keep coming back to is fairness. This proposal is not a ballot system or a waitlist system. We are going to vote on introducing an expression of interest process that is weighted and flexible to deliver what the community wants and what they've asked us to deliver in that area. It's a fair way forward for everyone. The sentiment has also been expressed in emails received from a number of our biggest and prominent contributors to the arts and culture in Fremantle. The tenancy process does need to be reviewed. So too do the rents. It's important to ensure that there's an appropriate range of rents. A not-for-profit organisation, a newly established artist and a commercial business need varying levels of rent. An expression of interest process allows those distinctions and to be properly considered and is fair and transparent to everyone. I appreciate that this is a sensitive matter for all of the tenants who are there today, both financially and emotionally, particularly for those who have been in the studios over decades. I do hope that they will participate in the expression of interest process if it gets through tonight. However, at some point, a transparent and equitable process has to be introduced, and many of the current tenants have written to explain how they have or are already delivering the outcomes that align with the process, assessments, criteria, and the things that are the visions that have been put forward. So given their experience, track records, and in some cases, decades of contribution, they're well placed to demonstrate their value through that process. In the interests of fairness, transparency and equity, I'll be supporting the introduction of an expression of interest process tonight.
Are there any other? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. And I just wanted to, I guess, touch base a little bit about why the city, the council, hasn't necessarily activated the spaces that have not been the subject of these fairly long leases. So the whole precinct as a whole. Effectively, what happened 14 years ago is a strategy was put forward, just like we're having now. And this council, or the council at the time, basically made so much change to that strategy that it sucked all the meat off the bones of that strategy and left almost nothing. And then we were expecting our officers to activate, to implement something that hardly even existed because the strategy had been put to death by the sort of process that we've seen tonight. And we can't expect people to invest, professionals to invest in making a vision come true, if we don't properly support them. And that's why it's important for us as a council to say, yes, this strategy does meet what our vision is for the area, what our community strategic plan vision for the area. It's time sensitive because of 2029 coming up. And so we do need to get on with it. We probably needed to get on with it 14 years ago. God knows where we would be now in terms of that area if we had. I know there were mistakes made. There always will be. Nothing's going to be perfect. There will be hiccups along the way. But unless we give the people that have drafted this vision, who know way more about this stuff than the individuals on council, unless we give them the license to keep going with this, the same outcome will occur. The other thing is that these are subsidised spaces. It's not me subsidising it. It's the city ratepayers. That's the community of Fremantle who are subsidising these spaces. And we do that because we believe in the arts and we believe that we should invest in that, and that's what the subsidy is for. But it needs to be done equitably. You know, it can't just be for some and not for anybody else. You know, how many people should I subsidise? 3, 5, 20, 100? You know, how many artists are there in Fremantle, whether they're at the peak of their game or just emerging? You know, we do have to, this is ratepayers' money, and we do have to share it around equitably into the arts community. That is actually our responsibility. And with the subsidy, you know, people go, well, they're paying rent. The subsidies for these spaces, I won't go into details because they are leases. I guess that's commercial in confidence. But I can tell you that the sort of amounts of money that are being paid for these spaces, these basic sheds, bit like some of the shitty places I've leased in the West End over the years as well, which didn't have air conditioning, didn't have heating, didn't have anything but mould in the wall and a toilet wiped down the very back of the building, which you had to run through the rain to get to. I was paying probably 8 times more per square metre for those shitty spaces, subletting to musicians to come and rehearse, and they were paying about 4 times more than what these spaces at J Shed. And that is the sort of going rate. I know lots of musicians and artists in the West End and further out who are, paying significantly more for studio space. And I don't say, oh, well, that's wrong that we subsidise those sheds down there for, such a small amount of money that we ask them to pay. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But other people need to have a crack at it as well. And that's what this is about. This is about that fairness. It's about that equity. It's about respecting the broad arts community of Fremantle and giving people an opportunity to participate in the way that others have had a very long and very lucky opportunity to do so.
Given our semi-tradition of speaking, given reasons when you are going to vote against an item, I just want to note that Part 2 that we're voting on, support the delivery of an expression of interest process outlined within this report. The process as outlined within this report, it specifically says, in June this month, 6 months notice given to tenants of units 1 and 4. That's what we're voting on, the council. So I think to change that, I'll be happy to be corrected, but we'll probably need another vote. 12 months notice given to tenants of units 2 and 3. Given that we're supporting the delivery outlined in this report, that is actually what we're voting on. Now, the amendments that were put forward would have delivered a renewed precinct, just in a different way, and a different timing, and at different stages. There would have been spaces opened up starting in June 2026. Just would have been different spaces and would have gone through the process differently. Instead of ending at the top, we would have ended at the bottom. So this wasn't about necessarily fairness or that. It was just about the order in which we were going to be considering. There was no amendment or anything put forward about not delivering things that are contained in this report. It was just the timing. But we're now considering starting with J Shed and starting with a 6 months notice given to tenants of units 1 and 4 and 12 months to units 2 and 3. So I really wish Gina Lee the best of luck, finding a new home, finishing the projects that she has, and moving 50 tons of rock within 6 months. That's going to be extremely difficult. I hope staff can find another #1 gallery to replace Glen Cowans when that one comes up. And very successful, and and best of luck for negotiating with people who made it very clear how they feel when we're going to be trying to probably negotiate some goodwill from those people. So while I support the intention of what is before us, and I support the transition there, I just can't get myself over the line because of the human cost of what this is going to mean for some people that have contributed so significantly to our community, and we're willing to make a transition, but just have it done in a certain way. We've had a vote that shut those options off, so I know this will be approved, so I have no problem voting against the item, because that's really, for me, it's just the human cost is just too much in how this specific process is laid out. I would have been very happy to support something that basically flipped things around. So I will be voting against this, but I wish the staff the best of luck in delivering it. Councillor Williamson Wong.
Thanks. I thought I was finished with my questions and my speaking tonight, but I have a question based on that response, Mayor Lorva, because I thought we had previously clarified that the timeframes as provided in the report are, as Councillor Moughlin had asked, indicative. It may say 6 months. That does not stop the administration from extending those timeframes, but your comments seem to suggest otherwise. So can we please have a clarification from the CEO?
Through the chair, the timeframes are indicative. They can be negotiated as well, depending on how the EOI process goes. And again, I'll make comment that the current tenants can apply as part of the EOI process. And if they're successful, then clearly there's a different negotiation in play.
Councillor Kamara.
Can we vote in parts, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'll just give you my 2 bobs worth. I'll be quite brief. I think I missed the IEM where this was discussed. I think I was on leave, and so this has come out of the blue for me a little bit because I didn't get any background. Weren't at the meeting to understand what was going on, so I maybe sound a bit vague, but that's mostly nothing unusual for you guys. But my concern is in the EOI selection process is the qualitative requirements and the weightings, and the cultural 50% to me is very high when you read into the dot points underneath, and it seems to be sort of skewered in a certain way, which in my view, and this is just my view alone, is certainly not going to give the existing tenants any great comfort. For them to write an essay on that criteria could be very hard for somebody who hasn't got a particular background. And this area needs mixed uses. I mean, okay, we talk about all these mandatory things that have happened in 2012 and 20 whenever, you know, but if, as I say every time at the IEMs, we're running a business, and this is a business as well. So to get something down there that's going to be vibrant and, you know, create people coming in and create money for people and all this sort of investment, you need mixed uses, and you just can't think that one, because 2029's coming up, that this is going to be the be-all of end-all. You know, we either do this as a real, okay, let's the council do up the J shed, let council get in there and make this an attractive proposition for people. But I don't see that. I don't see that. And you've explained it very well, Mr Mayor. So I won't go on about that too much, but just to say I do have concerns about it. I don't think the council's thought this one through. This is, you know, from the business side of things, this needs to be thought through. This needs a 6 months business case to look at before we just go out to an EOI with 50% and 25% and 25% and think we're going to get a great result. Hey, it's not how the real world works. But anyway, there's been an outpouring of support for the existing tenants. I'm not convinced that the city will get what they wish for, so I will leave it at that.
Did you have a question, Councillor Williamson-Wong?
No, I have a comment. I haven't spoken on the item yet, I don't believe.
Got you down as having spoken.
Well, I asked a question.
If it's quick, yeah.
Well, it's just a comment to Councillor Graham's point about one direction or proceeding, needing mixed uses in Mandurah, and I think I didn't need to clarify, but Aboriginal people can run a mixed use. There's many businesses that they might seek to bring to Mandurah. We're not, and that is the kind of mixed uses that would be involved, and the cultural weighting would also play into that. It's not specific that we're looking for only Aboriginal visual artists, for example. So to put you at ease, I think we could still end up with a range of uses and businesses within the area, and also have weighted them on a First Nations basis.
Any other comments on the item? Councillor Moughlin.
Thanks. Yeah, just to follow up on that, it is pretty clear in the report that officers anticipate that we'll get a broad range of uses connected to the vision, purpose and guiding principles along the lines of arts, culture and creatives across all career levels, not-for-profit, commercial and collective models. So I think what we are saying is that it's open to so many different types of opportunities there, and the criteria within the EOI can be applied to all those, whether they're early creatives, commercial or other types of models as well. So I think we, and you know, from what we've heard as well from the broader community, we'll be seeing a number of people who are very keen to present some new offerings in that area.
Great, thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Any further comments on the item? Yeah, Councillor Kamara, I was just going to ask if you wish to close.
Okay, I will take the opportunity now that we're at the end of a very long item, which is a very important one. Look, I'd just like to reiterate my earlier comments that now that this is the officer's recommendation has been voted in, that the existing tenants are treated with dignity, whether they choose to go through the EOI process or not, and that we take the opportunity to work with them and include them in the whole process. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Great, and we'll move this one in parts. So we'll move part 1, which is noting the Mandarin engagement report, providing attachment 1. First, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And now we'll move part 2, supporting the delivery of an expression of interest process outlined within this report to identify suitable arts and cultural uses in the Mandarin precinct. All those in favor? It's Councillor Moughlin, Slaughter, Councillor Van Dorsen, Councillor Clark, Councillor Sullivan, and Councillor Williamson Wong. All those against? Councillor Graham, Councillor Kamara, Mayor Lawver. The item is carried. Well, that's our first item for the night done, everybody. All right. Okay, so I'll just remind folks that when we get to 9 o'clock, which is 30 minutes from now, we will need to consider having a break or not, or if we are going to continue on with the meeting. So I'll go back to our agenda as ordered, everybody. We are on item 1, which is Field Street, and thank you for being so patient. Yeah. All right, so we've got an officer's recommendation for Field Street. Can I ask someone to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Van Dorsen. Councillor Moughlin, did you wish to open?
Yeah, thanks, I will open. And just to ask a question of officers, so thank you for the proponent coming and speaking to us this evening. And he has spoken about a proposal of replacing existing trees with, as he described, more appropriate trees. If I recall correctly, that's not included as part of the proposal that's in front of us tonight. Is that the case, that that's not included for consideration?
Through the chair, the applicant provided that as, I guess, information as part of their application with their arborist report to justify the removal of the trees. Officers have reviewed the arborist report and don't believe it meets the criteria to remove the trees in the first place. Keeping mature trees on site is a far beneficial result than less mature trees being planted. There is no alt-rec for approval. An approval recommendation would include conditions to make sure those trees were planted on site if the trees were approved to be removed.
Okay, thank you. We'll just let other people speak to it, but most probably, or rather flag that without that information on what would be a replacement, and if that is actually suitable, that it might be more appropriate to defer for that information to come back at another time.
Great, thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Any other comments on the item? Councillor Graham. Sorry, Councillor Sullivan. Just pipped you out, Councillor Graham.
Thank you. Obviously we've got a new policy and a new approach to trees, and it's challenging and it's certainly difficult both for staff and ourselves to know exactly how to manage this going forward. In this instance, I think the staff made the right call with the facts sort of in front of them, specifically with relationship to the tree retention. That we can't have a policy and then have virtually every tree bar one get removed when the policy is actually really saying the majority probably should be retained. There'd have to be good reason why only one was retained, and I don't think those reasons have necessarily come forward. Having said that, I also think that we're going to need to, in making these decisions, look at the design options and the policy options that might be available to applicants in trying to retain trees, because it's in our interest to, as a community, for those trees to be retained, but also I think the flexibility, if we're really serious about retaining the trees, the planning flexibility needs to go a little bit deeper, and that's really hard to ask the officers to do that. I mean, it's really the applicant's job to look at what opportunities there are to save those trees, and if there are concessions that need to be made to other elements of the planning, the design consultants should be coming to the planners and saying, look, I can retain 3 trees or 4 trees of the 6, but I'm going to need your planning help with setbacks or street setbacks, or in this case with the levels of the fill, cut and fill on the site. We can't, when we have so many different policies which are pulling in different directions sometimes, we also have to have the flexibility. In this instance, the planning policies talk about them lowering the floor level of the building, but as soon as you lower the floor level of the building, it puts at jeopardy at least 2 of the trees if that building is anywhere near them. And we're not talking about, a metre setback. To retain those sort of trees, you suddenly lower the site, you really need 4, 5, 6 metre setback from those trees. Otherwise, you're just going to be putting them at risk anyway. At the end of the day, I actually look at it and go, the applicant could probably have a single-storey house, which is what they want. They don't want a 2-storey house, and that's their business and that's their right, and I respect that. But a quick analysis from me, I probably would have approached it by cutting the garage underneath the house, which would have automatically freed up a huge amount of area to play around with in terms of building the single-storey house above it. And if the driveway on the right was going to take out the best tree in the front, then I would have put the driveway on the left, and given the condition of that tree that's half mutilated by storms, probably would have, as a decision maker, accepted that there's no point keeping that half a tree. But that's now the only one that is proposed to be kept, which is sort of unfortunate. I would also probably have begged our planning officers to go, maybe we could be a bit more relaxed with the setback in that particular site, because what's right next door to it is not really part of a streetscape at all. It's part of a massive complex which has a completely different feel to the rest of the street. So, the opportunity could have been for both a garage that cut in, rooms that sat above it, freed up the site, changed the setbacks a little bit to allow that, and, optimise the use of the block. As soon as you free up that, you've actually got more room to play with in terms of keeping the other trees. So the applicant hasn't asked for a deferral. I don't think there's been any suggestion that they're prepared to go further, so there's not really much opportunity to do anything other than look at the refusal. But I do think it's an opportunity lost, unfortunately. I think that's a big block. You could design most of what the applicant wants and save a few more of the trees. That's surely the intent of the policy. So let's stay with that.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, to me, this has got approval written all over it. I mean, as soon as I read it, as soon as I went down and did a site visit, I thought, what on earth is going on in here? And, it gets down to the trees, doesn't it? Again, I mean, this is the first time I've seen a recommendation with infill in it It's been sort of said inconsistent. Well, I mean, anyone who's been to the site will realise, I mean, this is built on limestone and capstone, so it's going to take a lot of fill or a lot of explosives. If Councillor Sullivan wants an underground car park, you're going to have to get a bomb in there to get rid of the limestone and capstone, just like it did when I did my junior certificate at South Fremantle High School, when the bombs were going off through every exam in 1970. So anyway, a bit of history there. I thought I'd throw that one in. But as far as trees go, and this is where the hierarchy of the planning committee should be planning and development and what the houses are going to look like and all this, not come down to a couple of trees that are in a spot that, oh no, we can't knock them down, or cut them down, I should say. I know this, I grew up in this area, so look, I know Field Street, Davey Street and Kewadale Street. If anyone's got a problem with the tree canopy around those areas, go for a drive down those 3 streets. I'd say those 3 streets, and they're only small streets, have got more tree canopy than any other streets in Fremantle. And so it's not going to affect any mitigating, urban heat island effect, whatever that means. 200 metres to the east, you hit Bruce Lee Oval, which has got a huge amount of trees. There's that many trees around this area. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'll read out what I think annoys me the most, and I've lost it. But it's got here in number 1, the trees will not contribute to blah, 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 and will not assist in mitigating the urban heat island effect. Now, that's a bit of a throwaway. I don't know, I think that must be a personal line. I don't think that'd be in our policy, would it? So I don't know why officers are saying something like that in a recommendation by virtue of the removal of the 4 existing regulated trees. Wouldn't it be better to read, if the 4 regulated trees go, we are going to get 8 new trees that are more in line with the, instead of Cape lilacs or Queensland bottle trees or whatever they're called, I hate to bring that one back. Sorry, Ashley. But, why don't we be positive about the fact that, okay, we're going to get rid of these trees, but we're going to get some beautiful trees. We're going to get a great new development. I mean, we've got no overlooking, no overshadowing, no objections, nothing wrong with this development application, and it's up for refusal. I just cannot believe it. It wasn't worth me putting up an alternate rec because of the bloody trees.
All right, thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Slaughter?
Oh. Yes, on my screen it comes up as directors. Thank you, directors. I will be supporting the officer's recommendation for this item. One of the objectives of our tree retention policy, Councillor Graham, is in fact mitigate the urban heat island effect, as well as reduce air pollution, improve groundwater quality and contribute to biodiversity and other environmental benefits. In particular, on this site, I note that the wonderful almond trees that are there don't have a massive canopy, but they are wonderful food for our native birds. They do really like almonds, and any house that I've lived in Fremantle has had flocks of both carnabis and nullah, white-tailed black cockatoos in the trees whenever they're fruiting. A coral tree at the front that's been damaged by storm. I am surprised that the arborist didn't determine that that was not worth saving. But the large Cape lilac in the middle, tree 6, I think it is, I do think that that does have a significant canopy and could certainly speak to our objectives of our tree retention policy quite well. It would mean redesigning a pool area. And personally, I put our local planning policy 2.26 of tree retention above a private pool. So that's one area that I do agree with the officers on, that it is inconsistent with the planning policy 2.26. The almond trees in particular, right on the boundary, would require the house to be set back from those trees a bit further. So I do wish there had been some more thought and potential redesign on that fact to keep those trees, because then I think, as you've heard, we would probably be having a different discussion. The excess fill and excavation part in part 2 there, with the site works and volume of fill proposed, not responding to the existing topography, is very difficult in that site, and that's another one that I actually do agree with Councillor Graham on, that myself having built on limestone and sunk down a level using bombs, it's hard work and it's expensive, and it takes thought and design, and it's going to be difficult on that site. So again, I wish that there was just a different design coming to us so that it could tick off that a bit more simply. And the third part of this, in particular, the negative impact to the streetscape, again, is quite a line ball one because of the location with your immediate neighbour to the north not being typical of the streetscape itself. So this is a really line ball one that I think just could do with some more finesse, and that we might be then seeing a different outcome. The driveway in particular being so wide is of concern to meeting that third condition, or sorry, that third reason why the proposal is inconsistent. So really, for me, following the officer's recommendation on this, as it stands, it is a refusal, but there are options going forward if the applicant wanted to reconsider some of the design items.
Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. Are there any other comments on the item? Seeing none, did you wish to close, Councillor Moughlin? Did you wish, Councillor Clark?
Thank you. Yes, I did go down this afternoon and have a look at this site, so thanks for meeting with us and inviting us to come down. I support the officer's recommendation. It's really interesting to get on site. I agree with a lot of what Councillor Slaughter said, and I support our tree retention policy, that there are trees that have been designed out of the property. There are trees that sit right around the edges of the property that could potentially be retained if they hadn't been designed out. And so far as number 2 with the site works, it is a very high level of build-up when you physically see it. It's super high, but we did kind of have a discussion around, when you're pulling rocks out of the ground to drop the level of where you're going to put the house, they could be used in the front to beautifully landscape up and retain and create something quite special at the front instead of just blocking up. And it would be very high and almost as high as my shoulder height. I was quite shocked. The width of the driveway concerns me too, because it does abut that next door driveway. It's really, really a wide driveway. So I can't support that either, but it doesn't mean it's a long way off. It just means that the design does need some changes, and I'm sure it can get there in the end if we if you come back with another round.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Van Dorsen.
Thank you, Mayor Lorver, and apologies I couldn't get to site today to have a look in person and meet with you and discuss the proposal. But having a look at it, yeah, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation, or I guess if a deferral was moved potentially, but I just feel, I just think developments and, they should be designed to consider their context, and you've got like 1,000 metre square property and you're building a, I think it's 3-bed house with rumpus and living areas and what have you. I just think I understand there's constraints of the site with topography, but I think more could have been done to retain trees. I think it's fundamental to any design. You do look at the planning framework and what the requirements are. I mean, one of the main things we look at, like I do development myself and involved in planning and everything, definitely tree retention where possible is one of those top things. You look at your parking, your compliance generally impacts on neighbours. Obviously being a single storey is good, and how much open space, but tree retention is one of those, where possible, is one of the top things. And it just looks, just the way it's been designed, you've got a large site and it just hasn't been considered. Like, it's retaining one tree out the front, which is not even the best tree. And I understand how things are designed and what have you, and maybe there wasn't an understanding of the planning framework or what we look to or would prioritise, but I just think more could have been done in the design to respond to that element. It's just really disappointing when we get proposals that disregard trees and, like Councillor Clark said, just look to eliminate them. It's sort of, when you've got a lot of space to work with, I feel things could have been adjusted. So unfortunately, I can't support the proposal as proposed tonight. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dorsen. Are there any other comments on the item before us? Seeing none, did you wish to close, Councillor Moughlin?
Thank you. Just as I mentioned earlier, I will propose a deferral, and I know Councillor Sullivan said that the applicant hadn't asked for that, but I do want to pick up on the point that was made, that we are all learning about the tree retention policy at the moment, and I think to provide the opportunity for the applicant to respond to that after having heard the feedback from council tonight, which has been quite direct, and then has the opportunity to do with it what they please or otherwise. But I think a straight rejection of this, refusal of this tonight, doesn't provide that opportunity. So right now I'd just like to move a deferral, to provide the applicant with the opportunity to review the design to improve the retention of existing trees.
Is there a seconder by Councillor Van Dorsen? I'm just going to ask a question because you get to speak to the deferral. There were other items mentioned during the debate, such as the width of the driveway and the amount of fill. Did you wish to address those in the deferral as well?
I'm happy for it if others would like to include those elements.
Great, thank you. Did you wish to speak to the deferral? No? Seconder, did you wish to speak to the deferral? Okay, so we're now going to consider a deferral on this item for the reasons of tree retention, driveway width, as well as the level of fill. Do you have a question, Councillor Graham?
Oh, I thought we were talking on the deferral.
No, it's just the mover and the seconder that speak on a deferral.
Oh, okay. Oh,
But you can take a page out of Councillor Williamson Wong's book and ask a really interesting question.
Well, I will ask a question. What through to the officers, perhaps, and I'm running on my feet here. If this doesn't get up, would the applicant then have a chance to go to SAT and get an approval through SAT? I'm sure SAT would approve this in the click of fingers, to be honest with you. But anyway.
Great question.
Through the chair, if the application is refused, yes, the applicant has the right to apply for a review to SAT.
And a follow-up question, how long would it be for a review by this council with no guarantee of approval and a visit to SAT? Approximate rubbery figures so the applicant has an idea.
Through the chair, unfortunately the SAT process is very lengthy. You have scheduled directions hearings, and it depends on what the SAT member then decides from there. So it would be a couple of weeks before the directions hearing was scheduled, a couple of weeks before mediation, a couple of weeks before it came back to council to reconsider. So a deferral, I suspect, if the applicant can turn around some additional information soon, would be far quicker.
Thank you. Great questions, Councillor Graham. All right, we have before us a deferral based on those following reasons. They will be drafted after more clearly, so that will be sent to you if this is approved. All those in favor of a deferral on the item? If that is carried unanimously. So your application is still live. You'll have a chance to address the things that were spoke about tonight and potentially bring a new design back to council for a consideration. Great. So no decision tonight after all that wait. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, just reminding folks, we're getting close to 9 o'clock, but I will ask if someone would like to move item C2606 number 2, and noting Councillor Williamson Wong is conflicted. That okay. Oh, yep. Does someone wish to move the item before us? Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Any discussion on the short stay in North Fremantle? Seeing none, we'll put the item up for a vote. All those in favor? I'm sorry, we're on the North Fremantle short stay on Alfred Road. There is no alternate recommendation on the. Okay. All those in favor of the item before us? Great, that's carried unanimously. Now, we're getting close to, well, okay, item 3. We also have an alternate recommendation that could also be moved. We have a officer recommendation to approve and an alternate recommendation to not approve. Can I ask for someone to move one of those two recommendations? Councillor Sullivan.
Happy to remove my alt rec.
Seconded by Councillor Slaughter. Did you wish to speak to your alt rec, Councillor Sullivan?
Sorry, thank you. This really comes down to interpretation of our policies and whether or not we, want to implement the policies or not. At the end of the day, our policy for short stay at 4.1 says something really specific. It says, in order to prioritise permanent residents within the city centre zone so as to retain a lively and vibrant centre throughout the year, consideration will be given to the number of hosted and unhosted short-stay rental accommodation properties registered at the time of the development application being lodged. Now, first of all, we weren't provided with that information, so in essence, it was a little bit difficult to apply the policy. It's a little bit sort of anecdotal, I suppose, to say, well, where's the line in the sand? Are we at that line? Or are we across it already, or are we a long way short of it? And to be fair, I mean, the staff haven't been given a particular clear indication as to where that line is or how to measure it. But we've been asked to make this decision. The staff have made their recommendation. I think the line is crossed. It's certainly my experience. I mean, I own an apartment in a similar type of apartments to Johnson Court, not as right in the middle of the city centre, but certainly nearby it. And my experience of that space is that the car park is about a quarter full during the week, and then come the weekend, all of a sudden, boom, it's got a lot of short stays all coming in. So I know that only 7 people out of the 56 apartments are owner-occupiers. I'm guessing a very significant number, maybe 30%, 40% are short stay, and the rest might be leased. Now, in Johnson Court, it's my understanding that around about 25%, 20 to 25% are already short stays. And that's significant because that's taking away the population base that we are desperately wanting to have in the city centre zone. And the other stat that we're aware of is there's something like 400 plus short stay, registered short stay accommodation in the whole of Fremantle. Now, 400 rooms, imagine the size of the hotel that would need to exist to provide that. It's multiple big hotels. Most of them have 100 rooms, 150 rooms. 150 room hotel is huge. So when you've got 400 short stay accommodation just in Freo local government area, it's quite big. But particularly that area of town where, in Adelaide, I mean, that street, that is the core of where we're trying to get people living in the city centre. And, we do have a decision to kind of do on the run to say, where is that line? Is 20-25% too much? My gut is, yeah, it is. If it was a few, that would be fine. We put this policy in place because we were concerned about this very thing. So I think we should just draw that line and make it clear that in the city centre, we want to do what clause 4.1 actually says. I would also say that it's too easy for these, the people that run the stratas. I mean, it's all very well to say, oh, well, let's leave it to the strata company. Well, in these buildings, if they're, 60, 70% investor owned properties, the Council of Owners is not going to pass that piece of law in their strata rules to say we don't want short stay. They're not going to do it. So it's actually, at the end of the day, it's our job. And because we're the ones but that's what planning is for. The planning is to try and get us to where we need to be as a city. And so I think we do need to draw the line in the sand on these two. So.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to Airbnb or short stay accommodations, but what I am opposed to is the high concentration within one building or one street. Because when you get that concentration, it erodes your community. It takes away neighbours, so it can leave people without any actual long-term living neighbours next to them. And for people who live on their own and people who like to participate in community, that suddenly isolates them because they've got his tourists next door that they'll never get to know. Having so many in the city centre also contributes to a lack of long-term rentals. We're so low so far as our availability in Fremantle. I think we're one of the worst in the state for having rentals available, and that exacerbates that issue as well. So no, I won't be supporting the approval of these tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other comments on the alternate recommendation that's before us? Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you. I thoroughly support this amendment to refuse unhosted short-term rental accommodation at this address for exactly the reasons of this alternate recommendation here, that it is inconsistent with our policy objectives. So 23.7% of those apartments are currently unhosted short-term rental accommodation, and that is, in my mind, too far for the policy that tries to prioritise permanent residents within the city centre. So I know where that line is in my mind, and also following on from what Councillor Clark said, creating community in our city centre and keeping it a vibrant place at all hours is really an important part of keeping Freo Freo. So thank you, Councillor Sullivan, for this alternate recommendation. Amendment. No, alternative motion. I'll get the words out eventually.
Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. Any other comments on the alternate recommendation before us? Seeing none, we'll put it up for a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Well, we've blown past 9 o'clock, everybody. We need to check in to see, does anyone feel like we should take a break, or do we want to keep going? Okay, got at least one person that's deciding for a break. So do I adjourn the meeting? Or for...
You can, if you just want to do a quick stop, you can stop.
Okay, a quick stop for, is that okay with everybody? So we don't have to adjourn the meeting? Or do we want to adjourn for, say, 5-10 minutes?
My apologies. Carry on. I was just actually indicating that I need to leave the room for a minute.
By all means, Councillor Slaughter. All right, everyone else is happy to carry on? Okay, all right, well then we will carry on with the next item, where we have another alternate recommendation as well as an officer's
Moved by
recommendation.
Alt-Rec.
All right, seconded by Councillor Moughlin. Any discussion?
I just would say too, that this is not anti-investor. This is, investors have choices. They can rent or they can short stay. And in the city centre, investors need to think very seriously about contributing to the housing crisis that we're in. If they want to invest, doesn't mean that they, can't make money out of this. They might just not make the mozza that they expect to make through short stay. The other thing I would say is, I'm not sure how many councillors were on council when the application for just up the road in High Street came forward to put in a bunch of additional short stays in that existing apartment building on the ground floor. And we said no because we didn't want the activation of the ground floor to be lost. But you might recall the number of residents in that building that came to this council and said, we've had a gutful with the short stay. All the short stays are owned by the one person. He operates more than half the building. He leaves mattresses in the hallways and the whole lot. And they'd had a complete gutful. And of course, they couldn't do a damn thing about it because he had the majority voting rights in the strata. So they couldn't change the strata rules even if they tried. So I just wanted to highlight that because it is already an existing problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any other comments on the alternate recommendation? Seeing none, we'll put that up for a vote. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. All right, next we've got the annual update of the heritage list, which is item number 5, but there's a proposed amendment by officers.
We call Councillor Williamson Wong back?
Yeah, how do we do that? Yeah, we should. Can someone check the elected members lounge to see if, oh, perfect.
Are we able to move it with the officer's amendment?
Yeah, I was going to ask if someone would be so kind to do that.
I'm happy to do so.
Seconded by Councillor Clark. Any discussion on the item as before us?
Just to thank the staff. This is a fairly extensive one, and I've had difficulty sometimes in the past with some of the heritage reports, where logically, I'm going to object to some things being not in there or not rated high enough or the like. That's just the nature of these things. I couldn't fault this one, and I thought it was, a really good job and really thorough. And the advice that we've been given is certainly pleasing to me.
Is it someone on the planning team's birthday? Is there any more discussion on the item? And Councillor Slaughter, the item was moved with the officer's amendment. All those in favor of the item before us? That's carried unanimously. Does anyone wish to speak on the remaining 3 items, 6, 7, or 8? Because if not, I would ask if someone would be so kind to move them in block. Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any discussion? No? All right. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And we're on the downhill slope, everyone. There's no statutory reports, no committee or working group reports, no motions of previous notice, no urgent business, no late items, no confidential business. So we'll call the meeting closed at 9:09 p.m. Great work, everyone. Woohoo.